The nanny is a kleptomaniac, always pilfering food, meat, kitchenware, jewelry, and clothes from the house. This time, she made off with one of the twins my mother had just given birth to. I didn't stop her. In fact, I helped her cover it up. Just a bastard child. Good riddance. Hunger pang stabbed at my gut, and I went sprawling in a heavy fall, lying on the floor, staring up at the familiar pale blue ceiling. I realized I had been reborn, just then. A faint rustling sound came from the hallway. I scrambled to my feet and peered through the crack in the door. The nanny, Agnes, was sneaking into the nursery. Moments later, she crept back out carrying a market basket, its contents hidden under a few heads of cabbage and some onions. Once she was gone, I bolted into the nursery. Sure enough, only one baby remained in the crib, sleeping soundly. Gently, I turned the baby over, seeing no dark mole on the left side of his chest. I let out a heavy sigh of relief. That's my brother, thank goodness. In my past life, at this very moment, the nanny Agnes was trying to sneak away with one of my twin brothers. I caught her in the act, and she fled in a panic. From then on, Agnes held a grudge against me. She was the first to run to my parents, spinning lies, and telling them I wanted to drop the twins to their death. I was just a 10-year-old kid. No match for that 50-year-old witch, Agnes. My parents believed her story and sent me off to live with my grandmother in the countryside. When I was 18, I was finally brought back home, only to be told that my mother and my twin brother Noah had died in a car accident years ago, and that my father had remarried long since. My stepmother abused me, and my father turned a blind eye. My only hope was to turn to my remaining twin brother, Evan, for help. But he just said, "What makes you think I'd help an outsider go against my own mother?" He pushed me down the stairs, and I was left there, clinging to life. When my father and stepmother returned from their trip, they buried me in the backyard. To everyone else, they claimed I'd run off with some no-good man. It wasn't until my soul was floating in the air that I finally learned the truth. It turns out Mom never gave birth to twins back then. Dad and his mistress used their own illegitimate son, Evan, as a replacement, and the car accident that tipped Mom and my brother was also secretly orchestrated by these three. Given a second chance at life, I will protect Mom and my brother at all costs. I won't let these three bastards succeed. 2. In my past life, I was brought back home solely to be a test subject for the sickly Evan. During one of those drug trials, when Evan took off his shirt, I happened to see the large black mole on his chest. That's precisely why I was certain just now that the one Agnes made off with was the illegitimate son, Evan. I glanced at the large clock on the wall. There was still over an hour before Mom was discharged from the hospital, and Agnes probably wouldn't be back anytime soon. That's when an idea struck me. I had to make sure Evan could never come back. To crush any hope for that scumbag and that bitch, I immediately scooped up my soft, cuddly little brother and rushed downstairs to the circuit breaker, only to find the main switch was already off. It dawned on me that Agnes was behind this. No wonder she felt so brazen about stealing our stuff. I rushed into my mother's room, took the key her mother had left her, then flicked on a lighter and set the curtains ablaze. In moments, the room was engulfed in flames. Huddled on the street corner with my little brother in my arms, I watched the house being consumed by the raging fire. In the past, I would have never had the heart to destroy the home I'd lived in for so many years, but now, far from feeling any regret, a wave of grim satisfaction washed over me, all because this house was a gift from my father, Victor, to his mistress, Eleanor. We had been completely in the dark, believing it was the marital home he'd built for my mother. Before long, someone called the police, and firefighters arrived promptly to extinguish the blaze. At the same time, a white Audi pulled up outside the police cordon. A woman stumbled forward, trying to rush in, but was held back by onlookers. Recognizing her as my mother, I seized the moment and ran out, holding my little brother Noah. "Mom, we're over here." Mom's head snapped up, and without a second thought, she rushed over to catch us. "Alara, my child, are you both all right? Let me see you." I buried myself in my mother's embrace. The familiar scent made my tears fall in a steady stream. After giving birth to my brother, Mom was left weak and had to stay in the hospital. In my past life, it was actually Dad's idea to send me to the countryside. Mom knew nothing about it. The moment she was discharged, she immediately drove out to the countryside to bring me home, and it was this very trip that gave Victor and his two accomplices the opportunity. They tampered with the car on a sharp bend in the road. Mom and my brother couldn't brake, and the car plunged into a bottomless ravine. Their bodies were never recovered. Perhaps sensing our mother's presence, my younger brother, who had been sleeping soundly, let out a soft whimper, opened his eyes, and gave her a wide, toothy grin, her face etched with lingering fear. Mom tightened her embrace around us. Kind bystanders quickly hurried over to help lead us outside the police cordon. Judging the moment was right, I put on a look of utter anguish. "Mom, the fire was too intense. I only had time to save little Noah. By the time I rushed back for Evan, it was already too late. Mom froze, staring blankly. She looked down at us in her arms, and the realization that one was missing dawned on her belatedly. Her face went deathly pale, and she covered her face with her hands, weeping bitterly, even though I knew Mom was unaware. In her eyes, Evan was her own flesh and blood. Losing him felt like having a piece of her own body torn away. But I just couldn't stand to see Mom crying over that illegitimate child. I reached out and gently shook Mom's shoulder. "Mom, you still have me and little Noah. We're still here with you." Someone nearby chimed in, trying to console her. "That's right, with a fire that big, it's a miracle two of them made it out. You need to stay strong, for the children's sake." "That's right, your daughter is amazing, at the very least. She managed to get her little brother out safely. The fact that they're both unharmed is an incredible stroke of luck. Don't be too upset now. You should hurry and take the children to the hospital for a thorough checkup." Hearing this, Mom stopped crying, nodded emphatically, and held us tight in a post-crisis embrace. "That's right, Mom still has you two at least. Don't be scared. I'm right here." Just then, Victor, who had finally arrived, pushed Mom aside. He frantically tore open his brother's clothes, upon confirming who it was. He staggered back several steps. Victor slapped me across the face. "Alara, why did you save Noah instead of Evan? What's more, with Evan still trapped, how dare you come out alive?" 3. Victor's words and actions left everyone present in shock. Someone rolled their eyes and said, "Seriously, what kind of father are you? Your daughter just escaped a fire herself. It's a miracle a child her age managed to save her little brother. And you have the nerve to hit her for it. I think I get it now. You're favoring the child who didn't make it out, aren't you? Weren't they twins?" "Exactly, they're both your own flesh and blood. Why treat them so differently? It's almost as if you wish it were these two survivors who had been trapped in the fire instead. I've never seen a father like this. If I didn't know better, I'd think those two children weren't even his own. Poor little thing, she nearly died in the fire. And now her own father treats her like this. She must be so hurt and confused. I'm really worried about the psychological damage." With everyone chiming in, Victor realized he had overreacted. His face flushed and paled as he offered a feeble explanation, claiming he was just overcome with grief and didn't mean what he said. To prove his point, he came over and pretended to comfort me. I recoiled from him as if from a snake, trembling uncontrollably. "Daddy, please don't kill me. Don't kill me." Siblings share a deep bond. The usually well-behaved younger brother, sensing his sister's terror, also began to wail. The onlookers shot Victor looks of pure disgust. Some of the more forthright ones even spat on the ground in front of him. Victor's face twisted into a look of utter revulsion, as if he'd just tasted something foul. His mother slapped him across the face in front of everyone, furious and disappointed. "Victor, just because you're in the grip of grief doesn't mean you can take it out on your own daughter. What kind of father does that?" Mother tenderly stroked my cheek, then aimed a few wild kicks at Victor. Knowing he was in the wrong, Victor offered a half-hearted apology while staring mournfully into the sea of flames. Agnes returned just then, carrying her market basket. After learning what had happened and realizing she hadn't been caught kidnapping the child, she sighed in relief, dropped to her knees, and began rattling off excuses to absolve herself of any blame. Consumed by grief over the loss of his son and desperate for an outlet, Victor kicked Agnes several times before firing her on the spot. Agnes wasn't about to give up her well-paying job without a fight. She clung desperately to Victor's leg, and the two of them descended into a chaotic, messy struggle. With a look of lingering fear, I said to Mom, "Let's go back to Grandma's house. Dad is too scary." After that ordeal, Mom couldn't bear to see Dad either. She picked up my little brother and me, and we left. Before leaving, I shot Victor a cold, hard look. This isn't over, for, just like that, 5 years had passed since we came to Grandma's house. My 5-year-old brother Noah had inherited our mother's good looks. He was such a handsome little boy that the village girls were always trailing after him. Mom and Grandma sat under the village gossip tree with the other women, having a great time teasing Noah and the other kids his age. I was perched on the doorstep, cramming for the upcoming high school entrance exam. After a while, Mom came and sat beside me. She looked at me as if she wanted to say something, but ended up saying nothing. I knew what Mom was going to say. For the past 5 years, Victor would call Mom from time to time to apologize, hoping she'd bring us home. On several occasions, he even showed up at our door with great fanfare, personally begging for the three of us, mother and daughters, to return, but every single time my episodes ruined it. Grandma threw swill at Victor. "Pa, you monster, you're the reason my granddaughter has psychological trauma. You don't deserve to be their father." The neighbors chimed in too. "So now you're feeling regretful. Where was that hesitation when you were breaking your own daughter's heart?" Mom was on my side at first, but as the years went by, her resolve slowly wavered. Whenever she saw other kids with their fathers, she would always sigh with a heavy heart. Besides, I'm starting high school this year. The schools in the countryside aren't as good as the ones in the city, and Mom really wants me to test into a city school for a better education. During dinner that evening, I brought up the idea of moving back to our home in the city. Mom was taken aback. Alara, are you absolutely sure about this? To be honest, I don't want you to force yourself. Grandma chimed in. That's right, sweetheart. Don't overthink it. The environment isn't what matters. As long as you apply yourself, you can excel anywhere. I have every confidence in you. I was deeply moved by their unwavering support, and truthfully, I had no desire to see Victor again. But no, that wouldn't do. I had to make Mom see Victor for who he truly was, once and for all. Besides, it was time to collect the debt he and his lot owed me from my past life. After the high school entrance exams were over, I applied to a city high school. We said goodbye to Grandma and drove back into the city, but I was careful. I didn't let Mom tell Victor we were coming back. We drove straight to the door, and only then did I call Victor. Victor was both angry and flustered. He called out Mom's name directly. Serena, why didn't you give me a heads up you were coming back? What are you trying to pull? The accusatory tone caught Mom off guard. She let out a bitter laugh. Victor, what do you mean? Weren't you the one begging us to come back? Fine, we'll leave right now. Victor was so startled that he immediately apologized. Mom urged impatiently, we're at the door, hurry up and open it. A soft curse came from the other end of the line, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps. Agnes was the one who opened the door for us, and seeing her gave us quite a surprise. Victor, who had rushed over in a panic, explained, well, you see, it's not easy for an elderly person to find work, so I kept her on. Mom never blamed Agnes for what happened that day, so she didn't say anything, but I was left with doubts in my heart. The moment he entered the living room, Victor dropped to his knees with a thud. He proceeded to slap himself hard across the face several times, then kowtowed, pouring out his remorse over the past years through snot and tears. Agnes dabbed at her non-existent tears. The master has been pining for you all these years. He's lost his appetite. Cries himself to sleep every night, has wasted away to a shadow of his former self, and even developed stomach troubles. Mom's eyelashes fluttered, a telltale sign her heart was softening. I quickly grabbed her hand, my own trembling. Mom, I can't breathe. Mom immediately turned and held me close, snapping at Victor to back off 5 meters. For years now, whenever Victor showed up, I'd put on a convincing act of having an episode to keep him away from the three of us, mother and daughters. A flash of malice crossed Victor's eyes, but for the sake of the act, he had no choice but to comply. Seeing this, I finally snapped out of my near-death state, worried I might have another episode. Mom took my brother and me upstairs, leaving Victor completely out in the cold. At dinner that evening, Mom laid down the law for Victor. He was not to eat at the table with us and had to maintain a distance of 5 meters in daily life. Suppressing his rage, Victor put on a wounded expression and said, is this really necessary? Serena, we're family. This is so cold. I am their father. After all, I was trembling violently. My younger brother rushed to hug me and said angrily, you're a bad person. The hesitation in Mom's eyes vanished as she said coldly, this is the sin you committed back then. Victor was left speechless. He wanted to say something but was afraid of upsetting Mom further, so he could only shut his mouth in frustration. After the meal, Victor brought over a pile of toys, trying to win over my brother and me. Unfortunately, he had no chance to get close, so he turned his attention to Mom. I quickly signaled my brother to fake a cry to distract her. Right up until bedtime, Victor failed to show any sign of being a good father or a devoted husband. On the 3rd floor, my younger brother shared a room with our mother. I had a room to myself, and Victor was forced to move down to the 1st floor. In the dead of night, I quietly opened my door and made my way all the way up to the top floor. The decor on this floor was surprisingly different from the others, exuding an air of opulent luxury, and the room at the end of the corridor positively gleamed with gold. When Victor showed up today, out of breath, I knew right away he had someone hidden in the house, and it had to be someone from the very top floor. I listened closely and, sure enough, I heard Victor's voice. The other voice was all too familiar. It was the other woman, my stepmother, Mandy. Mandy, I'm sorry to ask you to stay somewhere else for a few days. Once I manage to get that key from that wretched woman, I'll divorce her and make an honest woman of you. My suspicions were correct. All these years, Victor's been pushing for us to come home. It was never about making amends. He's been after the key my grandmother left my mother. My grandmother's family has been in real estate for generations, with properties all over the world. That key is the symbol of the heir, Mandy said venomously. Victor, I don't just want status. I want that woman and her brats dead. I will avenge my Evan, Victor promised. There, I will avenge our precious son. A plan is already forming in my mind. I clenched my fingers and tiptoed down the stairs. So they want to make a move on us. We'll just see who's quicker. 5. This house was a wedding gift from Grandma to Mom, but Victor, feeling sensitive about being a live-in son-in-law, never allowed Mom and me to live here. We only visited occasionally during holidays. Relying on memory, I found my way effortlessly to the parking garage. When Mom parked today, I immediately recognized that flashy red car. It was Mandy's, back in the countryside. I made a point of hanging around the auto repair shop. I picked up quite a few skills from Uncle Wine, which allowed me to quickly tamper with the brakes. I figured Victor and Mandy must have had one last blowout before parting ways. That's why it was a few minutes after I got back to my room that I finally heard the car engine start. I stood at the window and watched Mandy drive off into the distance. 2 days later, it was my younger brother's first day in the middle class at kindergarten. Mom was helping my brother get dressed while I was watching the morning news. I paused on a report about a car accident and turned the volume all the way up. Victor pulled the car into the front yard. He stood about 5 meters away, smiling as he asked if we were ready, seeing his eager-to-please expression. Mom's eyes softened and she replied gently, but the next second, Victor rushed in, his face pale. I deliberately took a step forward and let him bump into me. Mom cried out, "Victor, what are you doing?" As if he hadn't heard her, Victor stared blankly at the TV for a long moment. Once he was sure of who it was, he stumbled out the door, sensing something was wrong. Mom turned to look at the television. The screen was frozen on the image of Mandy being loaded onto a stretcher. The color drained from Mom's face, as if all the blood had been drained from her body. Noticing this, I let out a deliberate cry of pain. Mom snapped out of it as if waking from a dream and pulled me aside to tend to my wound, though she was clearly distracted. Could it be that Mom knows Mandy? After attending my younger brother's opening ceremony, Victor still hadn't shown up. Mom tried calling him several times, but all the calls went unanswered. During dinner that evening, Mom looked preoccupied, but in front of my brother and me, she still put on a brave face as if nothing was wrong. If not for the slight redness at the corners of her eyes, I would have thought Mom hadn't noticed anything unusual. I sighed inwardly. Grandma said Mom was the campus belle in university, with countless suitors. Victor was one of them, but he was the poorest and the top student. He pursued Mom for many years before finally winning her over. Grandma never liked Victor. She believed he had tricked Mom by putting on an act of deep affection. I am deeply convinced that Victor is ruthless and cruel. In our past life, he showed no regard for our past relationship and killed the three of us, my mother, my sister, and me. He was never sincere toward us. I must let Mom expose Victor's true nature herself. The next day, I suggested we do a thorough cleaning. Seeing my enthusiasm, Mom smiled and nodded. Agnes reacted as if facing a great enemy. "Oh, madam, I just cleaned a few days ago. It's spotless." "No need to trouble yourselves," I asked on purpose. "Mama Agnes, you seem rather nervous. Is there some secret hidden in the house?" Hearing this, Agnes glanced away guiltily and muttered, What secret? I just feel bad for you, miss. I don't want you doing such hard work." As she spoke, she abruptly changed the subject. "Oh, that's right. Didn't you say you wanted to bake a cake, madam? The weather is lovely today. We could start." Mom, who's a bit of a neat freak, decisively chose the second option. I, however, insisted on a thorough cleaning, arguing it would also teach my younger brother the value of hard work. Mom eventually gave in. With that settled, Agnes practically fled the scene. I quietly followed her into the restroom. She made a call to someone, and because the elderly person had poor hearing, she put it on speakerphone. Victor's voice came through. Furious and flustered, "What on earth are those three women trying to do? Keep them away from me. I'll be right back as soon as I get Mandy to sleep." Victor had been completely out of contact for a whole week. I thought he had gone to Mandy's funeral. Turns out she's not dead. Tough as nails, that one. My eyes darkened. I crept over, quietly latched the lock from the outside, and then stepped back, satisfied. Mom and my younger brother emerged from the room, fully geared up. She glanced back and said, "Did you hear something?" I shook my head, grabbed a broom, and hurried them straight up to the rooftop. That despicable couple has been living together for years. Even if they destroyed evidence, they must have left some traces behind. 6. Just as I expected, a simple cleanup turned up a whole pile of stuff: lingerie, over a dozen types of condoms, some videos, and a box stuffed with envelopes. I took a quick peek inside. They were letters from Victor to Mandy. Unbelievably, he'd been writing to her consistently for over 30 years, all the way from elementary school until now. So it turns out Mandy was Victor's childhood sweetheart. They were deeply connected, but Mandy dropped out of high school to work in a factory. Later, under pressure from her family to marry, she ended up wedding a man from the neighboring village. Every letter was a filthy declaration of affection. Every letter was part of their scheme against Mom. Victor pursued Mom with ulterior motives from the very beginning. They were after Grandma's estate. Overwhelming rage washed over me. I wanted nothing more than to rush over and stab them right then and there, but Mom's tears brought me back to my senses. I froze. Mom turned her head away, and when she looked back, her face was a mask of calm. She patted my head and said softly, "Alara, take your brother downstairs to watch TV. I'll clean up this mess by myself." At dinner that evening, Mom didn't mention a word about what happened in the attic, as if nothing had occurred at all. Agnes, on the other hand, spent the whole evening muttering about why the door was locked. I got so annoyed listening to her that I snapped at her to leave me alone. Just then, Victor came home. After dropping his bags, he fell to his knees with a thud. "Serena, I'm so sorry. The company sent me on a last-minute business trip. I had to leave in such a hurry that day. I didn't get a chance to explain." He even came prepared with all sorts of documents and evidence, making his story seem pretty convincing. A wave of disgust washed over me, and I replied with heavy sarcasm, "Couldn't reach your phone. Let me guess, was this business trip to the Isleo Mountains?" Victor looked up, his face a picture of shock. "Wow, that's my girl, spot on. It was that assignment in the Isleo Mountains, let me tell you, kiddo." I couldn't believe Victor had the nerve to spin such a load of nonsense. I could barely stop myself from lunging forward to wipe that smug look off his face. Suddenly, a warm hand reached across the table and gently took hold of both of mine. I looked up and met my mother's smiling eyes. A few seconds later, Mom walked over and affectionately helped Victor up. "Oh, come on, if you're busy with work, just say so. There's no need to kneel and apologize like that. You're making me look like some kind of shrewish wife." Victor flinched. He asked uneasily, "Why, you didn't notice anything, did you?" As soon as the words left his mouth, he realized how strange they sounded and quickly corrected himself. "Ugh, I mean, did anything happen at home?" Mom smiled. "Actually, yes." Victor's eyes darkened as he fixed an intense gaze on his mother. His mother giggled and playfully thumped his chest. "I'm getting things ready for our 10th wedding anniversary." Hearing this, Victor let out a barely perceptible sigh of relief. Before he could ask anything else, his mother had already pressed him down into a seat and served him a bowl of rice. Under the bright lights, the scene was filled with a warmth that had been absent for far too long. I took my little brother upstairs. I figured Mom had her own plans, and my job was to respect that. Of course, I would still move forward with my own plans. For Children's Day, I suggested inviting my brother's classmates over to celebrate at our house. Mom has always been supportive of my ideas, so she took care of preparing the ingredients and such. Victor couldn't help but say, "Don't you think that's a bit wasteful, sweetie?" I snapped back without hesitation, "Relax, we're using our own pocket money, not a single penny of yours." Victor was visibly embarrassed and signaled for my mom to speak up for him. My mother pretended not to notice. Focusing intently on knitting the sweater in her hands, Victor took a deep breath, forcing a thin, insincere smile. "All right then," he said, "as long as my wife and child are happy, I'm happy." As Victor tried to ingratiate himself by helping out, I no longer resisted as much as I had before. Seeing this, a meaningful smirk played at the corner of Victor's mouth. I pretended not to notice. Although I didn't know what my mother was planning, I had been playing along these past few days, dangling a few carrots in front of Victor, and sure enough, he was starting to show his true colors. At noon, Victor slipped furtively into Agnes's room. A few minutes later, he emerged, and within 10 minutes, Agnes was gone, laden with bags. I closed the window, grabbed my coat, and prepared to follow. "Alara," my mother's voice came from behind me. I hadn't even noticed her approach. 7. "She's going to Harmony Hospital." Before I could say anything, my mother urged me to leave with a smile. It wasn't until I saw Agnes walk into Harmony Hospital that it finally dawned on me. My mother had also looked into the connection between Agnes and Victor. That's right, Agnes is Mandy's ex-husband's sister. Mandy fled her alcoholic and abusive ex-husband and sought refuge with Victor, who had already been having an affair with her since their university days. When Agnes came looking for Mandy, Victor refused to let her go. Instead, he promised Agnes a sum of money to dissolve the marriage. Victor, of course, had no money. It was then that he turned to his mother, using her dowry to secure Agnes's divorce papers. Greedy by nature, Agnes simply latched onto Victor, demanding he provide her with a job and extorting a considerable amount of money from him each year. Of course, Victor and Mandy had no idea that their precious son Evan was taken by Agnes. Agnes took Evan to the countryside and gave him to her brother, Mandy's ex-husband Hank, to raise as his own son. To be honest, when my uncle told me all this, it took me a long time to calm down. Agnes was inside for an hour. After she came out, I asked at the front desk and sure enough, I saw Mandy's name. That car accident had left her with a broken leg. Seeing this, I felt a sense of exhilaration like never before. On the way home, I bought a bottle of Baijiu and a dress for Mother. and placed them on Agnes's bed when I arrived. Agnes had always been fond of the bottle. During dinner, she kept hiccuping from drink and fumbled drunkenly while serving the food, accidentally knocking over a scalding pot of soup. It splashed all over Victor's trousers, and his face twisted in agony. Victor, drenched in cold water, stormed out with a dark expression. "Mama Agnes, have you been drinking again?" Mama Agnes had long since lost her mind, and could only giggle foolishly, furious. Victor slapped her several times, but the pain in his groin was so severe he didn't dare continue. He rushed off to the hospital. Mother gave me a meaningful look, then took the keys and followed him. In the vast, empty house, only my brother, Agnes, and I remained. Holding my nose, I crouched down, fumbled for the phone in Agnes's apron, quickly swiped through it, found the address book, and zeroed in on my brother's entry. I composed a message in Agnes's voice. "Hank, I miss you guys. Since Children's Day is the day after tomorrow, why don't you and your son come into the city for a few days? The address is apartment B112. Don't get lost, okay?" I hit send, then, I wiped the record clean. My little brother tilted his head regretfully. "Sis, the spicy hot pot you wanted is gone. It's fine, it was meant for the dog anyway," I said, pinching his cheek. In the dead of night, Mom came home. I'm a light sleeper, so I woke up immediately. I sat up, my head drooping, feeling tense and uneasy. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you." Mom held me close, her voice choked with a whisper. "I had a feeling, but I wanted to hear it from you, Alara." I buried myself in her embrace and told her everything, about my past life and my rebirth. After a long silence, Mom spoke, her voice laced with a cold fury. "They can come for me, but they lay a finger on my child, and I swear they won't see the end of it." I squeezed Mom's hand. "Okay, we'll do it together. Together, we'll get back what's owed to us." 8. Before we knew it, Children's Day had arrived. Victor was wearing shorts that night. The scalding hot soup caused severe burns, damaging half of his manhood. The night he was hospitalized, he was running a high fever on and off. On Children's Day, he was confined to his bed. I was stunned by this unexpected outcome. Mom nudged my arm, shook her head, and chuckled. Upon further questioning, I learned the truth. That day, under the pretense of driving, Mom had steered the car into a ditch, causing an hour's delay. Coincidentally, the car also ran out of gas, wasting another hour. Victor eventually passed out from the pain, and only then did Mom flag down a passing vehicle. I gave my mom a thumbs up. In my younger brother's kindergarten class, there were 17 children in total. 14 showed up, and counting the parents and other relatives who came along, there were over 30 people in attendance today. Agnes couldn't get over her swollen cheek. She kept going on and on all day about who might have hit her. A few days ago, Mom and I just shook our heads, indicating we had no idea. But today, my brother and I walked up to her with pity written all over our faces. I gave my brother a signal, and he understood. Leaning close to her ear, he whispered, "Mama Agnes, I'm telling you this in secret. It was Father who hit you. He even raised a knife to kill you, but Mother stopped him." Mama Agnes's eyes widened in shock. She swallowed hard and stammered, really, but why would the master do such a thing?" Muttering to herself, she shook her head vigorously like a rattle drum. "Impossible. The master wouldn't kill me. He wouldn't dare. After all, we're in this together." Realizing she was about to say too much, Agnes stopped short. With a resolute expression, she insisted it was impossible. I thought to myself with silent disapproval, who knows? All I know is, after he took a call from some woman, he went berserk and tried to stab you. Mom stopped him, and then, out of sheer frustration, he poured the hot soup all over himself. Agnes let out a sigh of relief. "Oh, so that's what happened. I thought I was the one who had splashed the hot soup on the master." At that moment, something seemed to click in her mind. Muttering curses under her breath, she dashed out the door. As the guests trickled in, the banquet officially commenced. Mother, holding my younger brother's hand, led everyone on a tour. I waited by the back door, and finally, 2 figures, one tall, one small, appeared in the distance, walking toward me. As they drew closer, my eyes immediately fixed on the little boy. He was about my brother's age, but he was dark and skinny as a worm, with a head of hair as messy as a bird's nest. From beneath that long hair peered a pair of shifty, furtive eyes. I had no doubt, it was Evan, so, the man beside him must be Mandy's ex-husband. Hank was unshaven, his jeans filthy and tattered. I greeted them politely. "You must be Mama Agnes's family." The party started. "Please come in." Hank sized things up for a long moment, putting on airs and refusing to enter. Evan pleaded meekly, "Dad, we haven't eaten in days. Let's just go in." Hank clenched his fist and pounded on Evan like a hailstorm, cursing, "All you ever think about is eating, you good for nothing. You've wasted all my drinking money." Evan shot into the corner like a ball of fluff and froze. Then, suddenly, he began to squirm over like a worm, clutching Hank's leg. With a mouthful of blood, he pleaded, "Dad, I was wrong." The whole scene made my heart pound with terror. In my past life, Evan was so arrogant, ignoring my pleas for help, pushing me down the stairs, his face a mask of imperial contempt. Now he's nothing but a pathetic dog. This stark contrast. I can't help but feel a thrill. Seeing Evan was about to be beaten to death, I quickly spoke up. "Well, the banquet has red wine, white wine, and Huangjio." Hank's eyes lit up, and without another word, he headed straight for the front hall. I led Evan to the bathroom first. Hank had just kicked him so hard his left arm was broken. Evan swallowed hard. "Sis, is there anything to eat?" I silently pulled out a small cake. Evan wolfed it down, finishing it in seconds, then held out his hand as if it were his due. "More." I shook my head. "There isn't any more." To my surprise, Evan's little face darkened. He demanded sharply, "You bitch, how dare you refuse me?" I was utterly speechless. His personality really was just as awful as ever. That makes things easier. I took out another piece of cake, and Evan snatched it away fiercely. The next second, he collapsed straight to the ground. 9. I yanked off Evan's shirt, took a photo of his chest, and then anonymously sent it to both Mandy and Victor. When I reached the front hall, Hank was already wasted, slumped over the table and talking nonsense. A few parents looked disgusted, making excuses to leave with their children in tow. My mother maintained her composure as the hostess and saw them to the door. The children's dinner party hadn't even started, and people were already leaving. My little brother hung his head, sullen and dejected. Mom and I glanced away, feeling a pang of guilt. I gestured and said, "Mom, take him back to his room first. They'll probably be here any minute." Once I was sure Mom and my brother had gone upstairs, I flipped the main breaker, plunging the entire house into darkness. Not long after, Victor came limping down the stairs, in his haste. He stumbled and tumbled down the steps with a thud. "Mandy, listen to me. That photo might not be Evan. He was supposed to have perished in that fire all those years ago. Remember, don't panic. I'm looking into it right now. When I took the photo earlier, I made sure to capture the kitchen facilities in the background." Victor followed that lead, shining his flashlight. He saw Evan in the corner and couldn't help but exclaim, "What's this beggar doing here?" His body moved faster than his mind. He kicked Evan, sending him flying. The sound of cracking bones was unmistakable. Evan woke up in pain, cursing as he scrambled to his feet, only for Victor to kick him again. Seizing the moment, Victor closed in. He saw Evan, shirtless, and recognized the birthmark, standing there with a complicated expression, like a rabid wolf. Evan pulled a small knife from somewhere and viciously stabbed Victor's foot. Victor cried out in pain, his leg jerking up, sending Evan flying almost all the way to the front hall. Meanwhile, the drunk Hank fumbled to his feet, yelling for Evan to help him to the bathroom. Evan lay motionless, whimpering weakly, "Dad, Daddy, help me." The living room was thick with the smell of blood. After a moment's thought, I flipped the circuit breaker back on. Hank squinted, and the moment he recognized the figure on the floor, a shudder ran through him. He scooped Evan up. "Son, who did this to you? Tell your old man." Victor recognized Hank, knew he was in deep trouble, and tried to bolt, but a flying chair smashed into him. Seeing their romantic rival, their eyes blazed with fury, and the two instantly grappled with each other. Hank's punches landed with brutal force. "You bastard, first you stole my woman, and now you've hurt my son." "Bullshit, she was my woman, and he's my son." However, Victor was completely overpowered, and within moments, several of his teeth were knocked loose. In the corner, I was breathing heavily, yet a strange sense of relief washed over me. Mom tapped my shoulder. "Alara, go make the call." She didn't want me to see the violence. I understood. I ran into the bathroom and dialed Agnes. "Mama, Agnes, come home quick. My dad's going to kill your brother." Agnes's sharp voice cut through the air. "What? Does he know I took his son?" A voice chimed in beside her. "Took his son, Agnes? You'd better explain yourself." So Agnes had run to Mandy. Perfect. I can deal with them both at once. 10. Agnes and Mandy arrived one after the other to find Victor beaten half to death, with Hank lying in a pool of his own blood, drunkenly muttering nonsense. My mother and I came downstairs at that moment, and Victor told us to call the police. Agnes blocked our way menacingly. "Don't call the police. If the cops show up, we'll never get out of here." My mother and I pretended to be too terrified to move. "Over here, Mandy." Disheveled and wild-eyed like a vengeful spirit clawing its way out of hell, threw herself onto Evan, wailing uncontrollably. Upon learning what had happened, Victor's eyes burned crimson with rage as he lunged to strangle Agnes. Terrified, Agnes yanked Hank to his feet. "Hank, he's going to hit your sister, and your son." No sooner had the words left her mouth than Hank flew into a rage. Spotting Mandy carrying Evan toward the exit, he charged forward and grabbed her by the hair. "You bitch." He's my son. Mandy's face twisted with rage. He's my son. You're the ones who stole him. And so, the group descended into a chaotic brawl over the boy, a messy, protracted struggle. It was impossible to tell who stabbed whom. When the dust settled, everyone was lying on the ground. Blood gushed from Victor's mouth. Serena, see, call the police. Mom let out a casual "oh," then stepped over Victor's body, then Mandy's. Back and forth a few times. Before heading straight to the living room to make a phone call, Victor's eyes widened in utter shock, unable to believe what had just happened to him. Even as Victor was being loaded into the ambulance, his eyes remained wide open. Victor and Mandy bled out and died before reaching the hospital. As for Evan, he had already stopped breathing earlier, his bones broken from several kicks delivered by Victor. In this tragedy ruled to be the result of a personal vendetta. Hank was sentenced to death for killing 2 people. As for Agnes, she went insane and was committed to a psychiatric hospital. The next day, Mom flew my brother and me to Hawaii, and so began our mother-daughter trip. Story 2. My mom always pinches pennies, taking anything she can from the factory. Grandma cursed me for ruining the holiday. And the neighbors mocked our family when they heard we were eating moldy flour on winter solstice. She triumphantly hauled home a whole sack of moldy flour to make us dumplings. Furious that I'd embarrassed her, Mom dragged me inside and beat me black and blue. When I said moldy flour contains lethal aflatoxin, she slapped me to the ground. To prove moldy flour wouldn't kill anyone, Mom made Dad pry open my mouth and force-feed me handful after handful until my stomach bulged. To prove it wasn't poisonous, she made my father pry open my mouth and force-feed me the spoiled flour. Because of my interference, Mom couldn't finish making dumplings and stormed out with the whole family, cursing as they headed to a restaurant. Writhing in agony, I held my last breath on this winter solstice. When my eyes opened again, I saw Mother tearing open a sack of moldy flour to make dumplings. I stepped forward to help without a word. This time, I watched coldly as my entire family consumed those lethally spoiled dumplings. 1. My mom came home from her shift at the flour mill. She was hauling a sack of moldy, worm-infested expired flour. Seeing me standing there dumbstruck, she kicked me hard. What's the point of raising you? You're just like a damn idiot. Can't you see your own mother struggling with this? Lend a hand. With that, Mom flung a whole sack of moldy flour straight into my arms. 20 pounds of flour came crashing down on me. I landed hard on my backside, seeing stars from the impact of the flour sack. I realized I'd been reborn, on the winter solstice of all days. In my past life, Mom couldn't bear to spend money on flour for dumplings, until she spotted moldy expired bags being discarded at the factory. She treated it like treasure, immediately hauling a sack home. I warned her that moldy flour could contain lethal aflatoxin, deadly if consumed, locked inside my home. I writhed in agony across the floor until death took me on that winter solstice night. Coming to my senses, I wordlessly carried the moldy flour sacks into the kitchen, my eyes fixed on the spoiled contents. The flour bags were draped with cobwebs and speckled with insect eggs. My mother wiped the bags carelessly with a rag before opening them, releasing a sudden puff of white dust into the air. A pungent, musty smell instantly filled the kitchen. Mom smacked me hard on the back. Quit dawdling. Grab a bowl and mix the dough. I pulled a plastic basin from the cupboard. Turned out Mom had swiped this basin from the factory too. Rumor had it was the old security guard's foot washing tub, but my mom didn't care. She firmly believed anything could be cleaned with a good wash. 2. A huge basin of flour came pouring out. I spotted patches of mold in the flour, sprouting pale yellow fungi. Without hesitation, Mom picked out the moldy clumps of dough. She almost tossed them, then paused and had me fetch a large bowl instead, going to wash out the gluten from it to cook. The stainless steel bowl was also stolen by my mom from the factory, probably the dog bowl for the guard dog. Da Huang. I saw wriggling bugs and clusters of eggs in the flour, so disgusting I nearly threw up. Fearing another beating from Mom, I hastily poured in a large bowl of water and began kneading the dough with practiced efficiency. The squirming worms, countless eggs, and pale yellow mold were all gradually kneaded into the dough under my hands. Pleased by my uncharacteristic silence, Mom smiled approvingly and retrieved moldy wood ear mushrooms, worm-infested vermicelli, and half a bag of rotten black daylilies from the cupboard. Everything got a quick soak in boiling water. Finally pulled out a piece of expired pork covered in bronze-colored mold from the fridge, then chopped it into mince. Mixed it with wood ear mushrooms, glass noodles, and daylily buds to make dumpling filling. After finishing, my mom leaned in to sniff it and beckoned me over. Come here, you little brat, smell this. Has this meat gone bad? I rolled my eyes internally. The factory canteen served 3-day-old spoiled meat. After being thrown in the trash, my mom fished it out and kept it for 2 more days. Of course it reeked, but out loud I obediently replied, "You're absolutely right, Mom. A little dirt never hurt anyone. Besides, Some foreign countries actually deliberately age their meat before eating it. My mom gave me an approving glance, then hastily tossed in a handful of Chinese 5-spice powder before draining the grease from the range hood and mixing it all into the dumpling filling. With a few stirs, the filling instantly became fragrant and mouth-watering. 3. Working together with Mom, we quickly wrapped enough dumplings to cover the entire table. Just then, Grandma returned from her evening stroll. When Grandma saw how many dumplings Mom and I had made, she got so mad she whacked Mom several times with her cane. Wasteful woman, what family makes this many dumplings for winter solstice? Just listen to me, boil one batch to taste, that's enough, freeze the rest for your husband and my precious grandson, you two good-for-nothings, no sneaking dumplings, you hear me? My mom limped to the kitchen to boil the dumplings while I packed the leftovers into the fridge under Grandma's watchful eye. The dumplings were ready in no time. Grandma started dishing out dumplings for the whole family with a large slotted spoon. As the head of the household, my father got the largest share, 18 dumplings. My brother, the prized grandson carrying on the family line, received 16. Grandma kept 15 for herself. When it was finally my mom's and my turn, only 5 dumplings remained in the pot. I clutched my stomach and said, "Grandma, let Mom have the rest of the dumplings. I got food poisoning from the school cafeteria at lunch. The nurse said I can only have plain congee for 2 days, no meat dishes. Otherwise, if I get gastroenteritis, the hospital bill could cost thousands." The moment Grandma heard about potential hospital expenses, she immediately handed all the remaining dumplings to my mother. Then she shot me a disdainful look and muttered, "Just as I said, girls are born unlucky, can't even eat dumplings on winter solstice." Mom glanced at the 5 dumplings in her bowl, then at my empty one, finally flashing a triumphant smile. She said condescendingly, "There's some mung bean porridge I brought from the factory in the fridge, heat it up yourself if you're hungry." When I opened the fridge, a wave of sour stench hit me immediately. Sure enough, there was a bowl of mung bean porridge, actually just soup from the factory canteen, mixed with 3-day-old leftovers that had long gone bad. A layer of pale green mold had grown on the rice, for, in my past life, worried that my parents might eat spoiled leftovers and get sick, I secretly dumped that pot of mung bean porridge into the trash. When Mom found out, she grabbed the kitchen potato peeler and scraped both my hands until they were raw and bleeding. Only after I tearfully apologized did Mom reluctantly let me off, laying down a new rule. From now on, I'm not allowed to take anything from the fridge without permission from her or Grandma. Remembering how much Grandma loved porridge, I calmly closed the fridge door, took half a leftover steamed bun, and soaked it in hot water. Mom got upset again when she saw I hadn't listened to her. "Why didn't you eat the mung bean porridge? Are you ashamed of eating the leftovers I brought home from the factory again?" I quickly explained. "No, Grandma said we should save on gas. I thought reheating the porridge would waste money, so I just soaked the steamed buns in hot water to save some for the family." Mom pressed her lips together silently, but Grandma beamed with joy, praising me for finally being sensible. She even fished out a dumpling from her own bowl to give me, just as I was about to refuse. My little brother suddenly threw a tantrum. "The dumplings are mine, all mine. Don't give any to that waste of money." Grandma's saliva-coated chopsticks abruptly changed course. The dumpling meant for me landed in my brother's bowl instead. My brother smugly devoured the dumpling in one bite, then stood up and dragged away the remaining half-pot of dumpling broth right from under my nose. He taunted, "Worthless trash, good for nothing. You don't even deserve the broth." Grandma had meddled with the dumpling cooking, so there weren't enough to begin with. The whole family was left hungry. Then Grandma stood up and portioned out what little broth remained. Naturally, I didn't get any either. I heaved a huge sigh of relief. 5. After quietly finishing half a steamed bun, I gathered the dishes and washed them in the kitchen. Calculating the timing, I figured it was about right. Clutching my stomach, I hurried over to my mom. "Mom, my stomach still hurts really bad. Could you give me some money to buy anti-diarrheal medicine at the pharmacy?" The moment Grandma heard me asking for money, she flew into a rage and whacked my back with her cane. "It's just diarrhea, why buy medicine? Just hit the toilet a few times, flush everything out, and sleep it off." Without another word, she grabbed my arm and shoved me out of the house. "Go squat at the public toilet outside the neighborhood. The toilet paper's free there. Come back after you're done. No point wasting water flushing at home." Clutching my stomach, I hurried downstairs and dashed to the public toilet outside our residential complex. After connecting to the restroom's Wi-Fi, I opened my phone and pulled up the live feed from our home surveillance camera. This camera was another item my mother had stolen from the factory. The reason? She'd noticed dozens of yuan missing from her purse and suspected I'd taken it. After beating me up, my mom stole a surveillance camera from her factory and installed it in our living room. Worried I'd steal money again. Truth is, my little brother stole the money to buy trading cards. When I caught him, he shook his fist at me, threatening that if I ratted him out, he'd get our mom and grandma to beat me to death. As if I'd ever snitch on him. Nothing would please me more than seeing him throw his life away on stupid hobbies instead of studying. If my brother didn't do well in school, maybe our parents would let me continue my education. Ever since I overheard Grandma telling my parents to pull me out after middle school to save money for my brother's study abroad, that's when I knew, in this family, changing my fate was entirely up to me. 6. In the video, Dad lay on the couch clutching his stomach, his face deathly pale. My little brother ate more than Dad and has already started throwing up. Grandma's moans of oh dear, came from the small bedroom. Mom ate the least and was pacing anxiously around the living room after seeing 3 family members collapse at once. She wanted to call an ambulance, but Grandma yelled hoarsely at her, "You wasteful woman, that little ambulance van costs hundreds just for one trip. Are you made of money? Besides, who rushes to the hospital for a simple stomachache? Didn't you bring home that first aid kit from the factory? Go find some medicine for stomach pain, take it, and you'll be fine after some rest." I almost burst out laughing. That first aid kit Grandma mentioned was actually something my mom quietly took from the factory. It was full of common medications that had expired years ago, but my mom insisted that sealed medicine remained safe to use past its expiration date. My grandma firmly believed minor illnesses could be cured by sweating under blankets and sleeping it off. My mother hastily pulled out a white medical kit from under the bed, only to find all the pills inside had clumped together from moisture. My mother looked at Grandma with concern. "These pills are all stuck together. Are they still safe to take?" Grimacing in pain, Grandma lost patience with my mother's hesitation and slapped her across the face. "If the pills got wet, why didn't you just dissolve them in hot water? They're going to dissolve in your stomach anyway. Wet ones work even better. Go boil some water right now and dissolve those pills in it." Just like drinking herbal medicine, my mom stared at the gooey pills for a moment before suddenly calling me, "Audrey, are you done in there? Hurry back, your dad and brother got food poisoning too." My heart sank. I knew Mom was trying to pin this on me again. Just as I expected, I heard my mom say, "Audrey, all the medicine at home has expired and gotten damp. Didn't you always say expired medicine is dangerous and could kill someone?" You know how stubborn Grandma is. She's insisting your dad and brother take that expired medicine. "Audrey, you need to come home and talk some sense into her." 7. A chill ran down my spine as I listened. I tried reasoning with them in my past life. Look where that got me. In my past life after death, my spirit lingered at home. When my parents and grandmother returned from eating dumplings outside, they found my corpse already stiff, enraged. Grandma jabbed her cane into my eyes with such force that both eyeballs were punctured. She kept cursing through gritted teeth, calling me a jinx who couldn't even die properly outside but had to bring death home. He even threatened to scatter my ashes if our house became haunted and couldn't be sold. My father had been wanting to sell our house to start a business. Hearing Grandma say that, he urgently told Mom, "Hurry up. Dump this damn girl in the river before daylight. Don't let anyone know someone died here, or this house will become unsellable. I'll kill you if that happens." Just like that, my own parents dismembered me, stuffed into a flour sack my mother stole from the factory, dumped into the lightless sewers, my corpse gnawed by rats, leaving behind nothing but a pile of bleached bones. 8. The memory of my brutal death in a past life sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. Just as I was about to make an excuse, Mom's voice continued through the phone. "You little brat, if you dare hide out there instead of coming home, don't even think about next semester's tuition." "Wait, Mom, I'm done here. I'll be right back." I gritted my teeth and went back home for school. The moment I stepped in, my mom grabbed me in tears, saying Dad was critical and told me to call 911 immediately. Feigning confusion, I deliberately raised my voice. "Mom, you want me to call 911? Mom was startled and rushed over to cover my mouth, but Grandma had already heard. Lying on the bed while vomiting, Grandma started yelling at my mom, "Don't call 120, you wasteful woman. Why call an ambulance for an upset stomach? That hospital minivan costs hundreds just for one trip. Send Audrey to ask for help. Don't we have neighbors upstairs and downstairs with cars? Get them to take us to the hospital." My mother immediately pushed me toward the exit. They still assumed city apartments worked like rural villages, where neighbors would come running at the first call for help whenever trouble struck. After moving to the city, Grandma developed a habit of hoarding scrap, cramming the stairwells until the entire building became infested with cockroaches and rats. Because of this, nearly every neighbor in our building has had arguments with my grandma. I shuffled downstairs and knocked on our downstairs neighbor's door. I explained that my grandma had food poisoning and asked if they could drive her to the hospital. The neighbor almost laughed, shouting "Serves her right," through the security door. Then, the door was slammed shut with a bang. I went upstairs again, and as expected, got the door shut in my face once more. I ran from the first floor to the 11th, and in the end, It was our building's elderly caretaker who took pity on me and agreed to come check on my place. When the caretaker entered, my father was lying on the couch, barely clinging to life. My grandmother was foaming at the mouth, unconscious on her cot. My brother had it worse, convulsing on the floor with soiled pants. Seeing lives were at stake, the building manager immediately called the police. 9. Even in this crisis, Mom fretted about money, whispering, "Just call 110, not 120, that's too expensive." The building manager rolled her eyes in frustration and snapped at my mom. "This isn't just an upset stomach, it's food poisoning. People could die from this." My mother turned deathly pale, finally grasping the gravity of the situation. At the hospital, my father, younger brother, and grandmother were all wheeled in on stretchers. Shortly after, a doctor emerged holding a tray of vomit samples, asking my mom what they'd eaten for dinner. My mother flushed crimson and stammered, "Isn't today the winter solstice? We just had some dumplings." The doctor's expression turned graver as he pressed, "Which store did you buy these dumplings from?" They contain dangerously high levels of aflatoxin. This constitutes a severe food safety incident that requires immediate police intervention. My mother startled, trembling as she whispered, "We didn't buy them. We made the dumplings ourselves." The doctor fixed his gaze on her and demanded, "We need to identify the source of this contaminated food immediately. Think carefully. Was the flour, meat, or any other ingredients you used for the dumplings expired or moldy?" My mom nodded awkwardly and whispered, "The flour, I brought it back from the factory. I noticed a few bugs and some dampness, but it still seemed edible. Since it's the winter solstice today, I thought it'd be fine for making dumplings." The doctor's face instantly twisted into a look of horrified disbelief. Just then, my father was wheeled out of the emergency room, his body covered with a white sheet. The doctor sighed, "This one's beyond help. We'll do our best for the other two inside." With that, he rushed back in to save my grandmother and younger brother. 10. Seeing my father had actually died, my mother collapsed onto his body, wailing uncontrollably. After what felt like an eternity, my brother and grandmother finally emerged. After inducing vomiting, my grandma finally came to, but my younger brother remained unconscious. The doctor regretfully explained that while they managed to save my brother, the aflatoxin had caused severe damage to both his liver and kidneys. Even if he pulls through, my brother's chances of developing cancer later in life are significantly higher than average. Upon hearing the doctor's words, my mother collapsed to the floor with a thud, muttering, "It was just flour with some bugs in it. How could it be poisonous?" When Grandma learned Dad had died after eating poisoned dumplings despite emergency treatment, she grabbed Mom by the hair and started slapping her face repeatedly with full force. "You jinx. My son worked his fingers to the bone earning money, and you couldn't even spare decent flour for his meals. This is what you get for cutting corners, poisoning my son with your cheap dumplings. I'll beat you to death." Mom didn't dare fight back. Grandma tore off a chunk of her scalp before hospital security intervened, finally allowing Mom to escape her grasp. Too scared to confront my grandma, she turned around and slapped me twice instead. "Audrey, you knew that expired flour was toxic. Why didn't you warn me? I see right through you trying to poison your brother so you can have this house all to yourself. How could you be so heartless?" Covering my stinging cheeks, I hid behind the security guard and whimpered my defense. "Mom, don't you work at the flour mill? If even you don't know, how would I?" My mother choked back her words, realizing this scandal could cost her the mill job. She shot me a venomous glare before clutching my brother and wailing, "Tyler, with your father gone, there's no one left to pay for your education." My grandmother spat at me viciously, her eyes glinting with malice. "Then Audrey will quit school and work in the factory to put her brother through college." Everyone around me looked at me with pity, but I just lowered my head and smirked coldly to myself. Drop out of school to work and pay for my brother's education. Well, he'd have to stay alive long enough to attend first. 11. After my brother regained consciousness, Grandma begrudged the hospital bills. On top of that, we had to return to our hometown to arrange Father's funeral. Defying the doctor's objections, my grandmother forcibly checked my little brother out of the hospital. When we got home, the house was already packed with relatives. Clutching my father's urn, my grandmother wiped her tears while ordering my mother to prepare food for the relatives, opening the freezer to find a drawer still packed with dumplings. My mother bit her lip and murmured under her breath, "Maybe the dumplings weren't cooked through, that's why we got food poisoning. This time I'll make pan-fried dumplings instead. The high heat from the oil will kill even the toughest bacteria." To my horror, Mom actually took out all those aflatoxin-laced dumplings and started preparing them as pan-fried treats for our guests. Knowing our relatives were innocent, I quietly slipped out of the kitchen to warn Grandma. Just as I reached the living room, I overheard my relatives bombarding Grandma with all sorts of suggestions. Great uncle said, "What's a girl doing studying? Let Audrey come back to the village with us. I'll find her a husband soon enough." Second aunt chimed in, "My nephew just lost his wife, leaving 3 kids with no one to care for them. His family's offering 88,000 in bride price." Fourth aunt cut in eagerly. 88,000 is far too little. Our Audrey's still a pure maiden, if you're willing. My second brother's offering 180,000 instead. Sure, he's getting on in years, turning 40 next year, but an older man knows how to cherish his woman. The relatives haggled back and forth, bargaining over me like I was some piece of merchandise. My grandmother's eyes lit up as she weighed their words, finally settling on marrying me off to fifth aunt's nephew. Never mind that the man was a violent brute who'd already beaten 2 wives to death. Even though they're a full 23 years older than me, but they're offering 280,000 in bride price, the highest bid among all our relatives. 12. I quietly pulled my feet back, walked to the kitchen, and deliberately said to my mom, "Grandma cares most about appearances. Just serving dumplings to guests might seem too simple. Should we go buy some more dishes? My mom hates spending money." The moment she heard about buying groceries, she shot me a glare and started grumbling, "What dishes? With your father gone, we've lost a breadwinner. Hard times are ahead for this family." As she spoke, my mom opened the fridge. The top shelf held 2 large bags of wilted vegetable scraps my grandma had salvaged from the market, along with moldy noodles my mom brought home from the factory. The freezer compartment contained spoiled shrimp and dead crabs my grandma scavenged from the seafood market, plus a massive package of 3-year-old freezer-burned mystery meat. My mom thawed the freezer-burned meat, loaded it with Sichuan peppercorns, star anise, and bay leaves, then braised it into a fragrant pot of spice stew. The rotting shrimp got coated in batter and deep-fried, then combined with the dead crabs to make heaping portions of spicy fried shrimp and chili crab. The dish smelled incredibly aromatic with all those chili peppers, star anise and cinnamon tossed in. When the 2 meat dishes were served, relatives praised my mom's homemaking skills, while Grandma bragged about urban living, how convenient it was having a huge wet market right by our neighborhood. You didn't even need to buy groceries, just swing by the market near closing time to pick up discarded items, pork knuckles, hairy crabs, lobsters, you name it. We scavenged it. 13. When the relatives heard the prawns and crabs were scavenged, their outstretched chopsticks instantly recoiled. "Won't these scavenged seafood make us sick?" My grandma thumped her chest confidently. "Perfectly edible. Don't you know half the restaurants in town serve scavenged seafood like this? You'd pay good money for this at restaurants. But here, have I asked you for a single penny? That makes sense." The relatives picked up their chopsticks, took a couple of bites, and upon finding no foul smell, began eating with remarkable speed. Just then, my mom came out carrying 2 large plates of glistening fried dumplings. The relatives already knew my father had been poisoned by dumplings contaminated with highly toxic mold. Though my mom's pan-fried dumplings looked golden and smelled divine, nobody dared take a bite. Her eyes instantly welled up with hurt as she murmured in defense, "Those dumplings yesterday must have been undercooked, that's why they upset your stomach, but today's batch, I made sure to fry them extra crispy in hot oil. They say bacteria can't survive high heat. I fried these for over 10 minutes, any germs would have been zapped ages ago. How could they possibly be toxic?" My grandma's all about saving face. Seeing relatives hesitate to eat, she grabbed her chopsticks in a huff and wolfed down several pieces to prove a point, smacking her lips between bites. She lectured the relatives, "Some folks just aren't cut out for the good life. Let me tell you, this filling's made with premium black pork. Wouldn't even have brought this out if you hadn't made the rare trip to the city." Just hearing the words black pork made me shudder involuntarily. 2 years ago, market regulators discovered a batch of diseased black pork at the food market. They immediately confiscated it for destruction. That day, my grandma happened to pass by and snatched a huge chunk of the black pork when the inspectors weren't looking, then bolted. For weeks afterward, my grandma, dad, and younger brother took turns having stomach issues. No prizes for guessing it was from eating that contaminated pork. My mom and I are fine because in this household, we're what grandma calls outsiders. We weren't even allowed at the table to eat meat. 15. Watching grandma devour the savory pot stickers one after another. The relatives scrambled with their chopsticks to grab some before they disappeared. In no time, both large plates of pot stickers were completely gone. Great uncle picked his teeth and told my mom to fry 2 more plates of dumplings. Third aunt's grandson was also clamoring for more king crab and fried shrimp. Grandma hesitated. "After all, you don't just stumble upon fresh shrimp and crab every day." The relatives quickly flattered grandma. praising her good fortune to live in the city and her thrifty ways. Who'd have thought to scavenge for crab at the market? My grandma, always obsessed with saving face, got completely carried away by the relatives' flattery. She immediately ordered Mom and me to fry 2 more plates of dumplings and boil some giant crabs. Staring at those crabs that had been dead in the freezer for nearly a year, I smirked to myself. Go ahead, eat up. Hope you choke on them. 16, after stuffing themselves. All the relatives crammed into our living room, bedding down on the floor to wait for tomorrow's journey, taking Dad's ashes back to our hometown for burial, but they were never meant to return. A long line formed outside our bathroom in the dead of night. Everyone had gotten up with upset stomachs. Relatives clutched their bellies, pounding violently on my grandma's door while cursing for her to get up and take them to the hospital. Just then, a piercing scream from my mother erupted from Grandma's room. Mom, what's wrong? Wake up. Relatives burst through the door to find Grandma lying motionless on the bed, face blue, foaming at the mouth, with no signs of breathing. All grievances against Grandma and Mom were instantly forgotten as everyone scrambled to call 120 for emergency help. When the ambulance arrived, our living room was already littered with people collapsed in disarray. The floor was covered in putrid vomit, and some who couldn't control their bowels had soiled themselves. My mother and I accompanied our relatives to the hospital for stomach pumping, where emergency treatment continued until dawn. 3 people still didn't make it. The first was my grandma. She was already gone when they brought her in. Then there was 5th aunt, the one who tried to marry me off to that hyper-masculine wife-beater. She died just like my dad, acute aflatoxin poisoning leading to kidney failure. The third was great-uncle's grandson, that little brat who called me wasted money and wouldn't let me eat at the table. That idiot ate 5 spoiled crabs and over 20 poisoned dumplings all by himself. In the hospital corridor, relatives who had rushed from our hometown surrounded my mother, 17, with my father gone and my grandmother dead. My mother was the only adult left in the family. They grabbed her hair, tore at her clothes, and screamed at her to pay them back. Beaten black and blue by the relatives, my mother suddenly pointed at me in desperation and shouted, I'll pay, I swear I'll pay. Tomorrow I'll pull my daughter out of school and marry her off. Once we get the bride price, I'll definitely compensate you. 5th aunt's son spat at her in disgust. What's a bride price worth? We're talking about 2 lives here. I'm telling you, each family owes at least $500,000. My mother sobbed into her hands. How could our family possibly have $1 million? The relatives' eyes gleamed with greed as they clamored noisily. No money, then sell your house. Exactly, not just the bereaved families. You owe compensation to us poisoning victims too. Right, sell the house. We heard it's in a school district. Your mother-in-law said it's worth at least $2 million. My mother shook her head frantically. We can't sell the house. Without it, my son won't get into a top-tier middle school. Oh, and take that worthless girl back and sell her off. I've heard organs fetch high prices these days. Rip out that girl's heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. You could easily make $1 million or $2 million. Hearing my mother's words, my heart sank like a stone into the abyss. 18. To save my brother's school district house, my mom wanted relatives to take me away and sell my organs outright, but the relatives weren't fools. They knew organ trafficking was illegal. No matter how hard my mom pleaded, they wouldn't budge. They camped out in our home, pressuring my mom to sell the house immediately to pay up. I noticed my mother's gaze growing increasingly icy, and I knew I couldn't wait any longer. That day at the hospital where we took my brother for an drip, I deliberately stood by the door and loudly asked the nurse about dietary precautions for his aflatoxin poisoning. The nurse advised us to avoid greasy or hard-to-digest foods for my brother, recommending plain congee instead. My mother suddenly perked up and started giving me smug instructions on our way home. Go get that bag of Thai jasmine rice from under the bed when you get home. You'll be making congee for your little brother every day from now on. She glared at me warningly. That's imported premium rice. They say even kings eat this abroad. Don't you dare sneak any. Understand? I hung my head with a pitiful look, though inwardly I was laughing my head off. That premium rice was actually expired stock the flour mill owner had bought dirt cheap last year. My mom bragged to us about how clever the boss was. He turned expired rice into rice noodles and made a killing, but she was just as shrewd, sneaking several bags of that expired rice home when no one was looking. Mom said fragrant rice was fit for emperors, not trash like me, so she hid the last bag under the bed, saving it for when my brother got sick. Now that my brother's poisoned, the doctor conveniently recommends rice porridge. Perfect timing. My mother immediately dragged out the moldy jasmine rice from under the bed. I saw the side of the rice touching the floor had grown a layer of green mold, but Mom didn't care at all. She tore open the bag, scooped out a bowl of rice, shoved it into my hands, and told me to pick out the bugs. The rice inside was clumped together with insect eggs, crawling with tiny black bugs. It nearly made me vomit. 19. In the past, I would have tried my hardest to stop them, but no. I obediently washed the moldy jasmine rice, put it in the rice cooker, and made a whole pot of porridge. When the porridge was done, my mother shoved me aside, scooped out a bowl, and urged my brother to eat it while it was hot. Seeing me standing there motionless, my brother pointed at me and yelled, "You worthless girl, don't you dare touch my jasmine rice porridge." My mother shot me a fierce glare. "Stop staring. None of this is for you anyway, your grandma's dead. From now on, you'll be scavenging vegetable scraps at the market every day. Get moving." I grunted in response, grabbed the woven bag grandma used for gathering greens, and walked out without a backward glance. When I returned, both my mother and younger brother were gone, and neighbor saw me coming back and urged me to hurry to the hospital. "Your brother got poisoned again. The ambulance just took him away, Audrey. You'd better get to the hospital now." I rushed to the hospital and saw my brother being wheeled out of the emergency room. His body was covered with that all-too-familiar white sheet. My mother collapsed in tears on the spot. My brother died, and the school district house became completely worthless, under pressure from relatives. My mom quickly sold the house, and the money was completely divided among them. Only my mom and I were left at home. Probably realizing she was getting older and couldn't have more children, she decided to treat me better. She rented a small place outside and wanted to move there with me, but I don't need my mother's love anymore. I told her the principal decided to waive my tuition and boarding fees after hearing about our family situation. I decided to move into the school dormitory. My mother froze for a moment, then suddenly grabbed my arm desperately, pleading with me pitifully, "Audrey, it's just the two of us left now. If you move to the dorm, what am I supposed to do all alone?" I stared at her coldly. "You could become a live-in nanny. That way you'd save on rent too. Isn't penny pinching your favorite hobby?" 20. After that day, I never saw my mother again. When she came to school with money and supplies, I had classmates return everything untouched. During winter and summer breaks when she came to pick me up from school, she'd find I'd already left to work at a classmate's place. My classmates took pity on me. One happened to have a family business making plush toys, where I worked packaging them, earning over $3,000 a month. I could scrape by if I budgeted carefully. Just like that, my 3 years of high school flew by. After the college entrance exams, I applied to a university in another province. When Mom heard I got into college, she went wild with joy, bragging to everyone about how promising I am. She's even started arranging things in the village to find me a live-in son-in-law. After my brother died, Mom kept lamenting how she'd failed Dad by ending his bloodline. Now that I got into university, she probably thinks I'm finally worthy of carrying on the family name. She actually took it upon herself to arrange a marriage for me in the village. Rumor has it the other family has 4 sons and can't afford wives for them all, so they're sending their second son to marry into our household. On the day I returned to my hometown to transfer my household registration, my mom actually invited this man to our house. I glared coldly at my mother and told her I was going to college. There was no way I'd get married now. To my shock, Mom said she checked everything. The policy had changed, and college students could now marry and even have children while in school. She even pulled out her phone to show me videos of students getting married and having babies in college. "Audrey, just listen to your mother. Take advantage of your free time in college to have that second baby. This way our family line continues, and you can focus on your career after graduation." My mom genuinely believes she's doing what's best for me. She even went against my wishes. While I was packing in my room, she forcibly pushed that man inside. The man was leering at me with lustful eyes, practically drooling. I wouldn't have come back unprepared, as the man lunged at me. I swiftly pulled out a stun gun from my bag and jammed it into his gut. The man collapsed to the ground, convulsing violently. I grabbed my household register and ID card, stuffed them into my bag, smashed the window, and climbed out to escape. My mother's heart-wrenching screams echoed behind me. 21. The next time I heard about my mother was when the police station called, saying she'd died of food poisoning and I needed to return to handle the arrangements. Turns out my mother never shook off her old habit of cutting corners for petty gains. Too frugal to buy proper meat, she'd spotted chickens buried in a pit after dying from avian flu at the poultry farm. Under cover of night, they dug up a bunch of dead chickens. Some were salted and air-dried to preserve them for serving relatives during the New Year celebrations, with the remaining 2 birds. My mom went all out with Sichuan peppercorns and star anise like she always did, braising them into succulent chicken chunks. She devoured them single-handedly, grease dripping down her chin. After 3 straight days of feasting, my mother contracted a deadly bacterial infection and passed away at home. When they finally found her body, the stench of decay was already overwhelming. I had my mother cremated and buried her ashes alongside my father and younger brother. Later, I sold my childhood home. After graduating college, I bought myself a small apartment and became a nutritionist. Another winter solstice arrived, and I made myself a bowl of vibrant, nutrient-rich dumplings using vegetable juices of various colors. I'll never have to eat moldy flour or dumplings again. The end. Story 2. In my past life, my favored younger sister stole my marriage arrangement and wed the pure-blooded crown prince of the Azure Phoenix clan in my stead. While I was knocked unconscious by her and sold to a lowly, mixed-blood black crow within the clan, after marriage, my sister remained neglected in an empty chamber, bearing no offspring, yet I successively laid 5 eggs crimson as raging flames, my bloodline reverting to the ancestral vermilion bird, a nobility beyond compare. My legitimate sister was so consumed by jealousy that she poisoned me and my child under the guise of visiting me, so I dragged her down with me. When I opened my eyes again, my legitimate sister was to marry the lowly black crow. I laughed. 1. When I opened my eyes again and heard my legitimate younger sister clamoring to marry the lowest status, most mixed-blooded black crow, I knew she had also been reborn. Slap. The stepmother, unable to bear my sister's shouting any longer, slapped her across the face. Have you gone mad? Father was also so furious his chest heaved violently. What kind of thing is a black crow? You'd reject the crown prince just to seek misery. My younger sister covered her face and glanced at me. The crown prince's marriage belongs to elder sister. How could I possibly steal what's hers? I smiled. That wasn't the case in my previous life. When the marriage proposal letter from the Azure Phoenix clan's crown prince arrived at our mansion, my younger sister immediately declared she would marry no one but him. In truth, there was no need for her to compete. My father and stepmother had already entered my room first, ordering me to yield this marriage to my sister, promising to find me a better match in the future. Naturally, I refused. My marriage to the crown prince of the Azure Phoenix clan was a fine match that my mother tirelessly sought for me before her passing. The current crown prince is the only son of the Azure Phoenix emperor, a man of impeccable character. Truly the finest match under heaven. Where could one possibly find better? But what could I do if I disagreed? After mother's death, the concubine took her place with a child my age, and every good thing in the household fell into my half-sister's lap. This marriage was no exception. I cried and made a scene, but in the end, my legitimate younger sister still married the crown prince in grand style. Eventually, my parents couldn't resist my sister's will and could only instruct me. Your sister is the most kind-hearted, wanting to give such an excellent marriage to you. After you marry the crown prince, do not forget your sister's kindness. You must support her as much as possible. But this marriage was originally mine. I was full of mockery, but didn't show a trace of it on my face. Naturally, I replied. After the discussion ended, the family departed. As my legitimate younger sister passed by me, she said triumphantly, "Sister, it's my turn in this life to be the one who lays 5 vermilion bird eggs." I smiled. This moment was something I had long planned for. In the previous life, seeing my fierce resistance, my legitimate sister, fearing I might stir up trouble and ruin her plans, conspired with our mother to knock me unconscious and cripple my cultivation. They even withheld my dowry and sent me off in a modest sedan chair to the lowest status, mixed blood, and poorest family, the morally bankrupt black crow, who indulged in all vices from drinking to gambling, on the wedding day. The only gold hairpin I had left was forcibly snatched by him and pawned at a gambling den. After he left, I ran away too, but the place was too remote. I got lost, was recaptured by Black Crow, and had both my legs brutally broken, trying to run. No way. I'm telling you, your mother sold you to me. From now on, alive you're mine, dead you're my ghost. Every day I suffered under Black Crow's torment. My hatred for my legitimate sister grew deeper. Every day I was consumed with thoughts of revenge, wanting her to experience what it's like to be married to Black Crow, too. On the eve of the wedding, in this life, the man I'm marrying is the crown prince of the Azure Phoenix clan. My stepmother no longer dares to act recklessly as she did in my past life, and even contributed generously to my dowry. In truth, my mother had prepared my dowry while she was still alive, but in my past life, all these things ended up belonging to my legitimate younger sister. All my relatives and close friends came to congratulate me and add to my trousseau. As for my legitimate sister, not only did no one give her dowry gifts, but she was also mocked at every turn. I watched her humiliation with amusement, my legitimate sister's eyes reddening with fury. She lowered her voice and hissed hatefully, "Don't get too smug. Once you marry the crown prince, you'll just be left out in the cold. But when I bear the vermilion bird and raise it, the entire clan will have to bow before me. Let's see who dares neglect me then." A triumphant smile curled at the corners of my lips. Vermilion bird egg. In my previous life, I didn't have the capability to lay a noble vermilion bird egg. Previous life, I accidentally discovered that the color of eggs laid isn't solely determined by genetics, it can also be controlled through diet. That day I was ecstatic, and a bold idea arose in my mind, to lay fiery red eggs. I ate only red foods every day during pregnancy, finally giving birth to 5 blazing red eggs. I even spent money to spread this news. Within a single day, the news spread like wildfire. The Emperor of the Azure Phoenix clan personally came to verify, then declared that my 5 children had ancestral vermilion bird bloodlines, their lineage incomparably noble. My legitimate sister, who married alongside me, remained alone in her empty chamber, utterly neglected. Upon hearing my news, my legitimate sister went mad with rage. Driven by jealousy, she came to visit me, attempting to extract from me the secret to producing high-quality offspring, and I had been waiting for this moment all along, at the cost of deceiving all my clansmen, staking my worthless life to gamble on her visit, betting for a chance to be reborn and exchange fates. After feigning reluctance for a long time, I deliberately misled her, saying my aptitude was above average, and the only variable was the black crow. The crow's bloodline is mottled with ancestral traces of divine beasts like the vermilion bird, golden crow, and phoenix, higher probability of bloodline reversion. After obtaining the answer, my legitimate sister immediately sought to execute me and my 5 children. Prepared in advance, I dragged her down with me in mutual destruction. I was certain my legitimate sister would use that divine artifact reborn from Nirvana. It was given to me by my mother years ago, though stolen by my sister. The artifact requires my blood to reactivate. I won the bet. This lifetime, the bitterness of a failed marriage should be tasted by my sister too. 3. On the day of the wedding, the strikingly handsome crown prince of the Azure Phoenix clan, dressed in ceremonial robes, came to fetch his bride atop a majestic steed. Yet when he arrived at my family's estate, he didn't dismount to pay respects to my relatives or escort me to the bridal sedan. His demeanor toward me was utterly cold and brimming with contempt. Ironically, the black crow that also came to greet the bride was now groomed to look somewhat presentable. He dismounted to receive the bride, patiently following the wedding rituals with his legitimate sister, playing games like the Floral Poetry Challenge, before finally carrying her into the bridal sedan with a beaming smile. As for me, I was carried onto the sedan by my clansman. The legitimate sister, feeling she had regained the upper hand, wore an expression of triumphant pride. The stepmother beside me smiled for the first time and muttered, "What's the use of a good family background? She's not even married into the family yet and already has to endure this humiliation. Who knows how difficult life will be from now on?" I raised an eyebrow. Where in this world can one find a perfectly flawless good thing? In her past life, her legitimate younger sister married the only crown prince, securely occupying the empress's position with endless wealth and glory. Yet still unsatisfied as the prince treated her coldly, she often wrote pretentious letters to boast to me, living without material worries, yet devoid of love. Meanwhile, the recipient of these letters, me, was running around every day just to secure 3 meals. Just staying alive has exhausted all my strength. What's there to fear without love? An empty cooking pot is far more terrifying, and love can never blossom from it. I glanced at the dowry behind my legitimate sister. In this lifetime, with less embezzlement of my dowry and fewer contributions from the clan, my half-sister's wedding procession looked considerably shabbier. Still, it was enough for them to squander for quite some time, for, after the wedding ceremony concluded, I was escorted to the bridal chamber. Staring at the men's boots appearing beneath the bridal veil, I took a deep breath. The wedding night from my past life remains vividly clear in my memory. Back then, after being forced to marry Black Crow, he brutally took possession of me, indifferent to my suffering and pain. Even more terrifying was that in Black Crow's territory, a den of unsavory characters, groups of men would frequently sneak into my room day and night. Stripped of my cultivation, crippled and broken, I became mere flesh on their chopping block. I, the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's household, was reduced to a plaything for the lowly, torn apart by them, by fate itself, chopped into pieces and thrown into the boiling oil to be fried again and again. How could I not hate? How can I not hate? The Crown Prince casually lifted my bridal veil. I raised my eyes to look at him coyly and said sweetly, "Husband, let's sleep." His gaze held no emotion as he looked at me. "I'm going to the study." Having said that, he turned to leave. In our past life, he had done the same, leaving his lawful wife alone in their bridal chamber on their wedding night. I rushed forward and wrapped my arms around his waist. "My lord, have I done something wrong to displease you?" I pressed my body against his back and sobbed quietly. "At the flower viewing banquet during our engagement, I fell for you at first sight. Tonight is our wedding night, and I wish to be close to you." The Crown Prince shuddered slightly and softened his tone. "It's not displeasure, I just need some time alone, really." I wiped my tears and released my hold around his waist. "Then go ahead, husband, I'll be fine on my own." After my mother passed away, my stepmother and father didn't pay much attention to me either. I've grown accustomed to being alone. As long as you can come see me occasionally, I'll be content. The Crown Prince turned his head, his expression somewhat wavering. I will. I curled my lips and presented the wine to him. Then, could my husband share this wedding cup with me before leaving? Okay. The Crown Prince reached out to take it. I took another cup, slightly loosened my collar, then wrapped my arm around his and tilted my head back to sip slowly. Some liquor trickled down my chin, disappearing into my snow-white neck before continuing its winding descent. The Crown Prince's ears turned red, my hand trembled slightly, spilling the remaining wine onto the chest of his wedding robes. Ah! I let out a soft exclamation, bashfully helping him remove the outer layer of his wedding attire. He stared at me, his eyes unreadable. You've stained my wedding robes. What should be done about this? I let out a soft laugh, wrapping my arms around his neck, breathing orchid-scented words by his ear. Then, shall I compensate my husband with myself? The next moment, he swept me up in his arms and carried me behind the bed curtains. That night, red candles warmed the bedchamber as silken quilts billowed like crimson waves. The next day, I woke up early and freshened up. The Crown Prince propped himself up on the bed, revealing his chest covered in red marks, and squinted his long eyes at me with a dangerous tone. Ophelia, I underestimated you. You're awake. With a flushed face, I stepped forward and handed him a pastry wrapped in oiled paper. Hungry, have this to tide you over, but this isn't what I want to eat. He reached out and grabbed my wrist, pulling me back onto the bed. It was just a single night's affair. My relationship with Crown Prince Dash progressed by leaps and bounds. Crown Prince Dash no longer maintained his aloof demeanor, instead transforming into a constantly lustful beast. 5. The third day, I returned to my maiden home with Crown Prince Dash. Upon returning to the estate, I found my legitimate younger sister intimately chatting with Heya. Seeing me arrive alone, she let out a light chuckle. Sister, didn't the Crown Prince accompany you back to your maiden home on your wedding day? His attitude was particularly cold. It seems he's dissatisfied with you. Sister, it appears you'll have quite the ordeal ahead in your married life. When it comes to marriage and daily life, you still need to find someone who truly cares for you. My husband dotes on me endlessly, even a mosquito bite on me pains him terribly. Listening to my sister's boasting, I took a deep breath to suppress the resentment in my heart. Even married to such a worthless man, my sister still manages to live a comfortable and contented life. It's nothing more than the backing of the Prime Minister's residence behind her, supporting her legitimate younger sister. Even if she married the wrong person, she could still divorce and remarry. How could she end up in the same predicament as my past life? On the high hall, my father and stepmother saw this scene and were completely at ease. Very well, we don't expect you to be wealthy or noble, we only wish for your days to be smooth and happy. In the next moment, Prince Dash pushed the door open and walked in. Ophelia, I noticed you didn't eat much this morning, so I bought freshly baked peach blossom cakes. I'm not sure if they suit your taste, but please try one. He took out an oil paper package from his robe, unwrapped it, and brought a peach blossom cake to my lips. Delicious. Then I'll have a taste too, he said, picking up the crumbs at the corner of my lips with his fingertips and tasting them, making a double entendre. Very tasty. My legitimate younger sister beside me glared at me fiercely, her eyes almost spitting fire. Father and stepmother looked at my legitimate sister, sighing deeply. I'll take my leave first. Unable to stay any longer, my legitimate younger sister uttered these words before pushing the door open and leaving. As she passed by me, she caressed her lower abdomen and whispered in my ear, "Don't get too complacent. Within a year, I'll make sure you fall out of favor, make me fall out of favor, just because of her and the Black Crow's descendants." 6. In the following days, Dash and I were inseparable, eating, living, and cultivating together, our bond growing stronger by the day. Time flies when cultivating immortality, and in the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. That day, I received a letter from my legitimate younger sister. In the letter, she wrote that she was about to give birth and had been dreaming every night of a vermilion bird entering her abdomen. She begged me to summon the Grand State Preceptor to assist with her delivery. Clutching the letter, I curled my lips into a smile. I would certainly fulfill my sister's wish. Dreamt of a vermilion bird entering your abdomen. Dash beside me wore a pensive expression. Could it be the awakening of ancestral vermilion bird bloodline? This matter is of great significance. We should indeed seek the Grand State Preceptor's intervention. Divine beasts not only struggle to produce offspring, but their bloodlines are becoming increasingly diluted, with each generation showing poorer aptitude than the last. It has been nearly 100 millennia since a vermilion bird last appeared in this world. If one could truly achieve the ancestral bloodline of the vermilion bird, it would surely lead the 100 birds back to glory. Good, good, good. Summon the Grand State Preceptor to come at once. After giving his orders, the Azure Phoenix Emperor turned to me with a kindly expression and said, "Ophelia, I recall that you and your sister were married on the same day. Now that your sister is about to give birth, you and Dash should hurry up too. I let out a bitter laugh. The nobler the bloodline, the harder it is to conceive. In my previous life, I became pregnant in the first month after marriage, nearly 3 years earlier than my legitimate sister. What a pity, too many beasts violated me. I couldn't protect myself, let alone my child, and I would miscarry every few days. Then I got pregnant and miscarried again. The reason I discovered the connection between diet and eggshells was through countless tears and heartache. By the time I was finally able to successfully bear offspring, it was already the 5th year of my marriage. 5 years had drained all my life energy, leaving me aged and exhausted. The beasts around me found me repulsive, unable to muster any interest. Father, we're trying our best, working year-round without rest. All the women in Ophelia's family are highly fertile. Now that Ophelia is struggling with infertility, the issue might be with me. Dash stepped in front of me. It's all right, regardless of the outcome, your efforts are what matter. The Azure Phoenix Emperor changed the subject. Let's go, we shall set off together to witness this once in hundreds of millennia marvel. Within less than half a day, the news of my legitimate sister's prophetic dream had spread throughout the 100 Birds clan. Moreover, the story grew more fantastical with each retelling. The versions became increasingly varied. Everyone was spreading rumors that a great power had been reborn from my sister's womb to repay her kindness. There are also rumors that the legitimate younger sister is a great immortal descending to the mortal world to undergo tribulations, hence attracting the vermilion bird to be reborn. Others claim the black crow actually possesses an incredibly noble bloodline, thus capable of giving birth to the vermilion bird. Because of this, the legitimate sister and the black crow attracted widespread attention, with countless visitors paying homage, putting both in the spotlight. When Dash and I arrived at the legitimate sister's residence, our father and stepmother were also present. Their faces were glowing as they received everyone's compliments. Not at all, it was just a dream. Nothing worth mentioning, father said modestly, though the smile on his face couldn't be contained. Not so, the Azure Phoenix Emperor appeared, striding up to father. Dreaming of a vermilion bird entering the womb during pregnancy is something that hasn't happened even once in nearly 100,000 years. I suspect it must be a great being descending with a mission. That's why such a prenatal dream occurred. Seeing the Azure Phoenix Emperor appear, the crowd immediately knelt down in reverence. The legitimate younger sister and the black crow also came out from the house to pay their respects. Please rise quickly. The Azure Phoenix Emperor personally helped his legitimate sister rise to her feet. The legitimate sister glanced at me triumphantly, stroking her pregnant belly as she walked proudly up to me. Sister, you still haven't conceived. You'll need to work harder at that. My belly is so large with this pregnancy. I fear I may be carrying 4 or 5 heirs. I smiled faintly. In this regard, I cannot compare to you. Sister, my legitimate sister lifted her chin and said haughtily, indeed, but before her words had fully faded, a look of pain crossed her face as she clutched her stomach and began to moan loudly. The baby is coming. 7. In the crowd, no one knew who shouted those words. The Grand State Preceptor hurried forward to support his legitimate younger sister into the house, followed by basins of hot water being carried inside, under the eager gazes of the crowd outside. The Grand State Preceptor emerged frowning, holding a plate of grayish-green eggs covered in spots. It's born, according to the investigation. They are undoubtedly 3 crow eggs. After the State Preceptor spoke, the entire room erupted in uproar. What? Didn't she say she had a pregnancy dream about a vermilion bird flying into her womb? How could she give birth to 3 crow eggs? Well, her husband is a crow. What else would she give birth to if not crows? Dash beside me also looked astonished. How could this happen? Having anticipated this, I smiled and said, perhaps it's because little sister was thinking about it during the day, so she dreamed about it at night. The stepmother, surrounded by the crowd, turned deathly pale. Father listened to the crowd's discussion, his expression also turning extremely grim. Impossible, this can't be. At that very moment, my pale-faced half-sister rushed out of the room, screaming hysterically, I was supposed to lay 5 vermilion bird eggs. Who is it who swapped my child? As she spoke, she charged at me, snarling viciously. You wretch, was it you? Did you steal my child out of jealousy? Give me back my child. My stepsister's nails dug into the back of my hand, the pain sharp and piercing. Sister, you're hurting me, I murmured with a slight frown. Let go. Dash coldly rebuked her. Haven't you had enough of this madness? Slap. Even her usually doting father suddenly rushed over and struck her hard across the face. Enough. How dare you offend the crown princess? Get back to your room this instant. After speaking, her father turned to the crown prince with an apologetic expression. My deepest apologies. My daughter has been emotionally unstable today, leading to this disgraceful behavior. I beg your highness and the crown princess for your magnanimity. Times have changed. I'm no longer the pitiful little thing they could bully and order around. Now I'm the beloved crown princess of the Azure Phoenix clan. Father. You're hitting me. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she touched her swollen cheek. Slap. What answered her was another resounding slap and her father's furious roar. Apologize to the crown princess. No. Immediately, my stepmother, watching from the side, was heartbroken by this scene and kept giving me meaningful looks. Indeed, if I say the word, this matter could easily be swept under the rug, but why should I? I pretended not to see, coldly staring at my legitimate sister, waiting for her apology. Facing reality, my legitimate sister's eyes welled up with tears. After humiliatingly apologizing to me, she ran back to her room without looking back. It's fine, she's emotionally unstable after childbirth. I understand completely. Watching her retreating figure, I finally spoke. It must be hard for my legitimate sister to suddenly fall from heaven into hell, isn't it? But no matter how hard it is for her, it can't compare to even 1/10,000th of what I suffered in my past life. Father and stepmother have always cared most about Face. Now that they've suffered such humiliation, they probably won't be able to eat or sleep peacefully for a while. After watching this farce, the Azure Phoenix Emperor left directly after exchanging greetings with Father, his face full of disappointment. As soon as he left, many people at the scene also began to take their leave one after another, but in the blink of an eye, the bustling courtyard was left nearly empty. Before departing, I heard my father's furious roar from inside the house. Alara, is this the vermilion bird egg you told me about? Is this the fine gentleman you want to marry? After 2 rounds of your antics, I've been humiliated twice. I'm so disappointed in you. From now on, I won't bother with you anymore. You're on your own. After roaring at his legitimate daughter, my father caught up with me and the crown prince. He wanted to host a banquet to warmly entertain us. During the meal, my father held my hand and brought up past events, trying to mend our father-daughter relationship. My stepmother's face was full of unwillingness, but there was nothing she could do to change the situation. She had no choice but to try to win me over. I didn't refuse. What I want is for my legitimate sister to become a discarded pawn. Let her taste bit by bit the bitter fruit she sowed in her past life. Once my legitimate sister is completely ruined, father and stepmother will have no one to rely on but me. 8. During the banquet, I stepped away once. As soon as I opened the door, I encountered my pale-faced half-sister dressed in thin clothing. She stood barefoot outside for a long time, with peach blossoms from the branches covering her shoulders. Tell me, what must I do to lay a vermilion bird's egg? Her face was frenzied as she shook my shoulders wildly. Vermilion bird egg? What are you talking about, little sister? I looked at her with a bewildered expression, my face full of surprise. Stop pretending. Let me tell you, what does it matter if you marry the crown prince? Your fate is still in my hands. In your past life, you fooled around with so many different men, and I've kept all the evidence. Tell me, if I were to hand these over to the crown prince and show them to everyone, how long do you think you could keep your position as crown princess? My legitimate younger sister spoke while taking out a memory stone. Soon, the sound of my unbearable suffering came from within. No, I'm already pregnant with a child. I beg you, spare me, please. I'll kneel and kowtow to you. The other party let out a sinister laugh. Spare you? What does the child in your belly have to do with me? Memories from my past life surged back like a tidal wave. I was trapped in this painful memory, drowning and struggling to breathe, seeing me in such agony. My legitimate younger sister laughed with delight, tilting her head with an innocent expression. She said, "Let me tell you, I was standing right outside the door watching while you suffered. In fact, many of your lovers were introduced to you by me. Let me tell you, I've wished for your death for a long time. We're both father's children, yet you were pampered in the mansion since childhood, while my mother and I were just shameful outsiders, constantly gossiped about." My chest heaved violently. Unable to contain the overwhelming murderous intent any longer, I lunged forward and gripped her neck with both hands, veins bulging on the back of my hands. Cough. My half-sister struggled to breathe but still managed to speak intermittently. "Did you think I wouldn't guard against you? From the day you married the crown prince, I made dozens of copies. If I die, someone will spread it through every street and alley for me." I stared at her flushed face, the corners of my lips curling into an eerie arc. My dear legitimate sister, with so many men in my past lives, how could I possibly know who fathered those 5 vermilion bird eggs? After saying this, I released my grip. These words made my legitimate sister suddenly understand, and she stumbled away. I stared at her retreating figure, murderous intent flashing in my eyes. After the banquet ended, I informed my father about the contents of the memory stone in my sister's hand, forcing him to choose sides between me and my legitimate sister. If he chose me, I demanded that he personally deal with my legitimate sister and stepmother. Finally, I made it clear to you that my sister cannot lay a vermilion bird egg. Having said that, I turned and left. This is the last chance I'm giving him. 9. Shortly after returning to the palace with Dash, I received a letter from my legitimate sister. Unfortunately, this time, Father chose me. Father helped me investigate the surroundings of the Black Crow bit by bit, searching for descendants with vermilion bird bloodline. This time, I will surely lay a vermilion bird egg. I reached out and burned the letter to ashes, at every crucial juncture. Father resolutely chose my younger sister. In my past life, I was forced to marry the Black Crow. Living a life worse than death. Did my father truly not know? No, he simply took my sister's side, unwilling to spare even the slightest effort for a pawn like me. I closed my eyes, once again reminding myself, Ophelia, the only one you can ever rely on is yourself. Ophelia, what are you muttering about? Dash wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, his warm breath brushing against the nape of my neck. Just thinking about you. I smiled and leaned into him. Though my eyes remained perfectly clear, Dash didn't press further, just took my hand and gave it a gentle kiss. Ophelia, you can talk to me if something's on your mind. We're husband and wife, we share glory and disgrace as one. Let me be your support. Okay, my heart skipped a beat, yet chose to conceal without hesitation. I don't trust him, let alone anyone else. Afterwards, I actively participated in the political affairs of the bird tribe, striving to cultivate my own confidence. Clip my father's wings, and pull him down from the position of chancellor. Since he cannot be of use to me, the only way is to find a way to bring him down. Dash became the sharpest blade in my hand. In just a few years, my father was repeatedly framed, beset by internal troubles and external threats, leaving behind only a glamorous but hollow shell. The legitimate sister who depended on our father for survival found life increasingly difficult. She could no longer maintain her former glamour. Having dismissed many servants and resorted to selling shops, jewelry, and headpieces, while her attire grew increasingly shabby, not a trace of the Prime Minister's legitimate daughter's demeanor remained. But this wasn't enough, far from enough. I want her to climb high only to fall hard, to utterly sink to the bottom, living a life worse than death day and night. 10. Your Highness the Crown Princess. A letter from the Prime Minister's residence has arrived. A servant presented an invitation. I raised my hand to open it, revealing my father's flamboyant handwriting on the letter. It turned out my legitimate younger sister had sent joyful news again. She had given birth to 3 eggs as red as blazing fire. The father hosted a banquet to invite all the ministers, bestowing blessings upon the 3 unhatched eggs to encourage their early hatching. Upon seeing the letter, I curled the corners of my lips. My legitimate sister has been longing to lay a vermilion bird egg. Of course I must fulfill her wish. Previously, when my father and legitimate sister were desperately searching for the descendant with vermilion bird bloodline from the previous life, I secretly arranged for him to be sent to their side. The legitimate sister was overjoyed, swiftly divorced the Black Crow, and promptly got engaged to the other party. Her successful delivery of 3 offspring as red as blazing fire was also due to my secret bribery of the maidservant by her side, replacing her daily meals with as many crimson spiritual fruits as possible. Is there some joyous occasion? Ophelia is so happy. Dash walked over with hands behind his back, asking curiously, "It's good news." I handed the invitation to Dash. "Another baby." Dash sighed. "Father will probably use this matter to pressure us again, then I'll have to trouble you, my husband, to take the lead." When father furrows his brow, "People are scared to death." I hugged his arm and acted coquettishly. "What's the benefit then?" His rising tone was as alluring as a little hook. "Then, I'd better." I stood on tiptoe and kissed the corner of his lips. After the clouds and rain, gazing at the sleeping face before me, my heart swelled with an unbearable ache. Over these years, I've planted many spies around my legitimate sister, hoping to seize the memory stone in her possession. Yet all efforts proved futile. Once her vermilion bird egg hatches, in her utter despair, she will undoubtedly choose mutual destruction with me. If something goes wrong and my younger sister shows Dash the contents of the memory stone, will he really be able to accept it? I've prepared myself for the worst in my heart. After Dash woke up, we rode together in the carriage to my younger sister's residence. There's no doubt it's a bloodline reversion to the vermilion bird. Just look at this color. You can tell it's extraordinary. The courtyard was bustling with people. Father and stepmother beamed with joy as they greeted the guests, all previous gloom swept away. My legitimate younger sister held 3 eggs as red as fire in her arms, her face glowing with joy. I curled the corners of my lips. This time, my father, who bet on my legitimate sister, is probably going to be disappointed again. As the crowd saw me and the crown prince approaching, they came forward one after another to pay their respects. Dash exchanged pleasantries with the officials present, while I, feeling somewhat nauseous, went aside to rest first. My legitimate younger sister found me in the rest room and came over to greet me, smiling brightly. I was able to lay 3 vermilion bird eggs, all thanks to my elder sister's help, but elder sister should also hurry up a bit herself. Looking at her hypocritical face, I felt a wave of nausea in my stomach. "Sister, What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? My half-sister feigned concern for me, but the 100 birds blessing ceremony is about to begin. Why don't you stay and watch before leaving? All right. As she spoke, she pulled my hand and led me to the window. Sister, I want you to witness this moment with your own eyes. 11. In the courtyard, the blessing ceremony officially begins. The assembled officials transformed into beast forms, dancing and chanting around the 3 fiery red eggs at the center of the courtyard while channeling spiritual energy. In no time at all, the 3 eggshells began to crack. As time passed, more and more cracks appeared on the eggshells, until finally a small hole broke through. The father and stepmother nearby held their breath, their eyes filled with anticipation. The hole grew larger and larger, until finally a reddish, featherless chick hatched from the shell. The other 2 bare little chicks also hatched. Cheep cheep. The 3 chicks chirped with their eyes closed. The onlookers were dumbfounded. No matter how you look at it, this has absolutely nothing to do with the vermilion bird. This seems to be a chicken. According to tradition, when a divine bird descends, auspicious signs should appear in the heavens. Why is there nothing at all here? Haha. Chickens are also descendants of the vermilion bird. Who knows? These 3 chickens might have a chance to cultivate into vermilion birds someday. The stepmother's face turned a kaleidoscope of colors as she stood frozen in place. Hearing the murmurs, the father became so enraged that he suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. With hopes shattered, the legitimate younger sister also went mad. She stared at the 3 chickens in disbelief. How could this happen? How did it come to this? My vermilion bird, how could it turn into 3 chicken chicks? She suddenly grabbed my hand. Speak. Tell me, what exactly is going on, little sister? Just wait and see, give it some more time. Who knows, there might be earth-shattering changes, I said with a beaming smile. My legitimate younger sister had a dazed look in her eyes. Wait and see, I'll give it some more time. The next moment, the stepmother entered the room with a dark expression and slapped her stepdaughter hard across the face. Slap. Still keeping it, Alara, don't be foolish, after all this. You still can't figure it out. All of this was a trap set by your dear elder sister, just to make you voluntarily give up the position of crown princess. Use your brain properly. With your husband's weak vermilion bird bloodline, how could you possibly give birth to a vermilion bird? I warned you long ago, but you were like someone possessed, stubbornly ruining your life to this state. Your days of good fortune have come to an end. The only chance to start over was squandered by you. And there will never be another opportunity again. My legitimate younger sister went mad upon hearing this. No, I don't believe it. After saying that, she tried to run outside, but she ran straight into her father. Bang! Without mercy, her father delivered a brutal kick to her chest, like a kite with its string cut. The legitimate daughter crashed heavily to the ground. Alara, from now on I sever all father-daughter ties with you. Consider yourself no longer my daughter. After saying this, he hastily rushed to me again to pledge his loyalty. You wretch, you vile wretch, I won't let you get away with this. The legitimate sister watched with venomous hatred, struggling to crawl away. Beast. The father's eyes bulged with rage as he delivered another kick, shattering her spine and personally obliterating her cultivation. Watching the scene unfold, I fixed him with a mocking, half-smiling gaze. Now you're picking sides to prove your loyalty. Too late. It's already too late now. My wings have fully grown, while the Prime Minister's mansion is on the verge of collapse. Speak, where are those memory stones? Tell me, and I'll spare your mother's life. I crouched down, lifted my legitimate sister's chin, and spoke nonchalantly. The legitimate sister smiled, her face twisted with madness. Even if my parents die, I'll never tell you. If I can't have peace, no one will. My heart sank. We've finally come to this point. You vile beast. Upon hearing this, father became furious and began pressuring her relentlessly with all means, but my legitimate younger sister kept her lips tightly sealed, refusing to speak no matter what. Father turned to look at me. Daughter, rest assured, I will keep her under strict surveillance and not give her the slightest chance to leak any information. I responded and stepped out of the room, summoning the shadow guard. I handed him the letter I had written long ago but had delayed sending. Deliver this to your master. The shadow guard said in surprise. The master is right outside the door, conversing with the officials. I know. Leaving these words behind, I turned and walked away. 12. I arrived in the distant land of the orcs, thousands of miles away. Several years ago, I bought a house in a picturesque location in the Orc Kingdom as my fallback plan. In the letter I gave to Dash, I revealed to him the entire truth about my past life. I also included my current address. I reached out and touched my lower abdomen. Actually, I'm already pregnant. If he can accept it, come find me here and I'll tell him about the pregnancy. If he can't accept it, we'll make a clean break. I'll raise the child alone. Counting the time, it's been over half a year now, and my body is becoming increasingly cumbersome. It seems he's not coming back. Lying on the bench, I felt somewhat sad, though it was somewhat expected, but life isn't so bad these days. Apart from 3 meals a day and cultivation, I've opened a small medicine shop. Living a peaceful life, sister. Who is he? You're talking to yourself again. The orc in the shop brought over dinner while curiously asking me. He's the orc I picked up half a year ago. Back then he was severely injured, collapsed outside my herbal shop, and I saved his life from death's door. But he lost his memory, with nowhere else to go. He stayed at the shop to assist me, suppressing the bitterness in my heart. I said, my ex-husband. Oh. He nodded obediently and placed the dinner on the square table in front of me. Sister, please have your dinner now. I shook my head. No, I've gained too much weight. Sister was too thin before. Now you're just a little more plump. The beast-man younger brother smiled, showing his little fangs, and gently touched my belly with his fingertips. Besides, sister is now eating for two. I couldn't resist the orc brother's enthusiasm and picked up the chopsticks. At that moment, a faint sigh came from behind me. Ophelia. I turned around and saw Prince Dash standing behind me. His face had grown noticeably thinner, with a stubbly beard that gave him a weathered, exhausted look from exposure to the elements. You're pregnant. His eyes reddened, his body swaying unsteadily as he pointed a trembling finger at the orc beside me, voice shaking. Is it his child? I hesitated for a moment, finally letting out a sigh. Your Highness, more than half a year has already passed. Yes. Ever since I received the letter over half a year ago, I've been searching for you everywhere, not daring to rest for a single day. Dash, with reddened eyes, took out that letter. A look of surprise flashed across my face. Upon reading the letter, I realized the address I had left was blurred by tears, so it wasn't that he didn't look for me. My heart was filled with mixed emotions, just as I was about to tell him the truth when suddenly I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. The baby's coming. Quick, fetch the midwife. 13. Heavenly blessings descend, with auspicious light stretching 10,000 miles. The fiery clouds on the horizon transformed into a gigantic, soaring bird with widespread wings. Even more miraculously, the giant bird's wings were actually fluttering slightly, as if soaring through the 9 heavens. It's born. Immediately after, the midwife came out joyfully holding 2 vibrant green eggs. Without a glance, Dash rushed into the delivery room. Ophelia, how are you feeling now? Your lips have turned pale. Have some spirit fruit to replenish your energy. He helped me sit up and brought the fruit to my lips. You don't mind? I gave him a lazy glance. Mind what? Not to mention things from past lives. I don't even care about matters from this lifetime. His voice sounded muffled. What to do? You've got me completely wrapped around your finger in this life. My future family status is doomed. I snorted. Liar. Dash, under heaven, who could be more alluring than you? Divorce him and come away with me. He sighed as he spoke, holding me tightly in his arms as if cradling a long-lost treasure. I've known for a while you were keeping something from me. I could have uncovered the truth instantly in countless ways, but I chose not to investigate. I wanted you to tell me willingly, yet all this waiting only brought your sudden departure without a word. Scalding liquid trickled down my neck. I startled, only then realizing he had shed tears. Ophelia, try to believe in me. Okay, I'll become your most steadfast support. My heart was filled with mixed emotions, finally whispering softly, okay, as the words fell. The orc younger brother carried the 2 eggs before me. Sister, look at the children. Dash stared at the 2 verdant eggs in a daze for a long moment before tentatively asking, Ophelia, are these our children? Yes. After I nodded, he was overjoyed, hugging me while crying and laughing. For a man, he had more tears than I did. The arrival of Emperor Ching-Wan, Dash, and I quickly rose to greet him. Father, why have you followed us? Dash exclaimed in surprise. The Azure Phoenix Emperor saw the 2 eggs on the bed and laughed heartily. A heavenly auspicious sign foretells great fortune. I saw it from 10,000 miles away. Why are you still standing there? Escort the Crown Princess back to the palace at once. Story 2. After the college entrance examination, zombies broke out globally, and the end times arrived. I scored 701 points. My twin sister only scored 200 points. An organization proposed that it was willing to provide shelter for outstanding talents with college entrance examination scores of 700 or above. In order to survive, my sister pushed me out and fed me to the zombies. Then she got plastic surgery to look like me and pretended to be me to stay alive. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of checking the scores. What? Only 201 points. How is that possible? I studied so hard. How could I only get 201 points? Woo-woo, Mom and Dad. What should I do? With a score of 201 points, what will I do in the future? My sister Flora's cries rang in my ears. Looking extremely aggrieved, my mother comforted her. Dear, don't worry, you still have Mom and Dad. We will definitely make sure you get into a good university. After that, as if she had thought of something, my mother immediately turned to me and asked, Fiona, what about you? What's your college entrance examination score? Have you checked it yet? Looking at my mother. I tightened my grip on the admission ticket in my hand and realized that I had been reborn on the day when the college entrance examination scores were announced. My sister and I are identical twins. My sister has been beautiful, cute, and likable since childhood, while I've always been tongue-tied and less endearing. My parents dote on her, love her, and show blatant favoritism towards her. I didn't care much. I just wanted to study hard. Until the day the college entrance examination scores were released, my sister got 201 points, while I scored 701 points and became the top liberal arts student in our province. My parents forced me to give my score to my sister so that she could go to Tsinghua University in my place. I refused no matter what. My parents were angry but couldn't do anything about it. Who knew that 3 days later, the end times came, a terrifying virus struck, and the entire city, even the whole earth, seemed to turn into a purgatory. At this time, an organization suddenly announced that it was willing to provide shelter for those with a professional title of associate, senior or above and outstanding talents with college entrance examination scores of 700 or above. They would send helicopters for rescue, and each person could bring 2 family members. In order to survive, my parents and sister killed me, got plastic surgery to look like me, were picked up by this mysterious organization, and lived on under my name. Just thinking about it made me clench my teeth in hatred. I said, I haven't checked yet. Seeing the admission ticket in my hand, my mother snatched it away. If you haven't checked yet, why don't you hand over the admission ticket quickly? Let's check your score for you. Then she entered my information. The screen showed, your college entrance examination ranking has entered the top 50 in the province. For specific details, please check on the 27th. My parents were stunned for a moment, then extremely excited. This means Fiona has ranked among the top 50 in the province. With such a ranking, she can choose freely between Tsinghua University and Peking University. My father nodded, definitely. As they were talking, Flora burst into tears. My sister did so well, but I did so poorly. What should I do? Our precious daughter's sudden crying immediately made my parents feel heartbroken. They hugged her and tried to comfort her, but Flora wouldn't let it go. She stood up and ran back to her room, crying bitterly. My parents hurriedly followed her. I sat there, unmoving. I knew my parents would come out soon. Sure enough, my mother came out first. She looked at me with a complex expression. Fiona, we're really happy that you did so well in the exam, but as you can see, your sister is very upset. As the younger sister, you should care about her. I looked up at her. What do you want me to do, Mom? My mother's face froze, and she frowned, looking annoyed. What kind of attitude is that? What do you mean, what do I want you to do? As the younger sister, don't you know how to cheer your sister up? I asked. Then what would make my sister happy? My mother then revealed her true intention. How about this? From now on, you'll be called Flora, and your sister will be called Fiona, and you'll give your college entrance examination score to your sister. What do you think? Hearing the same words as in the previous life on the day of checking the scores, I smiled. In the previous life, I had cried, thrown tantrums, and refused desperately when I heard these words, but when the end times came, what did my willingness matter? I didn't even get to keep my life. So in this life, when I heard these words, I didn't refuse. Instead, I calmly asked, Mom, this is the most important moment in my life. With this score, I can freely choose to go to Tsinghua University or Peking University. What benefits will I get if I give my score to my sister? My mother was taken aback, then angrily rebuked me. She's your sister. What benefits do you want? I said calmly, Mom, it's impossible for me to give up the score I worked so hard to get in the college entrance examination without any benefits. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Unless you kill me. My mother's face changed. What benefits do you want? I didn't beat around the bush and said directly, I want 1 million yuan. My mother's eyes widened. Are you crazy? You want 1 million? Where can we get 1 million yuan? I nodded, not caring whether they could afford it or not. Give me 1 million yuan, and I'll give my score to my sister. This money will buy out my name Fiona and also buy out our relationship, of course. This 1 million yuan includes my college education. From then on, you won't have to worry about anything related to me. My mother flew into a rage. I think you've really lost your mind. We're your real parents and sister, yet you actually dare to ask us for money, and 1 million yuan at that. I think you've gone crazy for money. 3. I didn't argue with my mother. Instead, I stood up calmly and said, I'll only give you 1 day to think about it. I won't agree to it tomorrow. Think it through carefully. After that, I went back to my room. The reason I asked for 1 million yuan was that I knew our family wasn't poor. My mother was a plastic surgeon and had earned a lot of money. She could definitely afford 1 million yuan. Moreover, in the previous life, my parents had even offered to trade the house they bought for my sister in order to persuade me to give up my spot to her. It was my mother who performed my sister's plastic surgery, unfortunately. I was stupid back then and didn't take the offer. In the end, I died at their hands, reborn in this life, knowing that the end times were coming. Of course, I prioritized getting the money. Sure enough, after a day of discussion, my parents agreed. As long as I gave my college entrance examination score to my sister, they would give me 1 million yuan, as if buying out my exam results. I agreed and asked them to transfer the money immediately. My mother gave me a fierce glare. "How do we know you won't cause trouble after getting the money?" I smiled. "Don't worry, I'll go back to our hometown in the countryside. I'll come back after the scores are officially announced and you've successfully made everyone believe that she is Fiona." After hearing this, my parents finally felt relieved. They felt sorry for my sister and even took away my ID card and admission ticket before they were willing to transfer the money to me. Without hesitation, I took the money and was about to leave home. Just as I stepped out, my mother asked, "It's getting dark, where are you going?" I said, "Back to our hometown in the countryside." Then I closed the door and left. That hometown in the countryside was my grandmother's hometown. It was also where I grew up. When I was a child, my parents said they were too busy with work to take care of both of us, so they left me with my grandmother in the countryside. I was raised by my grandparents. It was only after my grandparents passed away that my parents had no choice but to bring me back. But when I grew up, I realized it had nothing to do with their busy work. They simply didn't like me. In the previous life, I still longed for family affection, but reborn in this life, I don't care about it anymore. With the 1 million yuan from my parents and the 200,000 yuan my grandmother left me before she passed away, it was actually a large sum of money, as far as I knew. The end times in the previous life lasted about 2 years. That meant I just needed to survive for 2 years. However, I still stocked up enough food for 3 years, because it wasn't just me, for I took the high-speed rail back to my hometown overnight. On the way, I placed online orders to wholesale a large amount of supplies near my hometown, including 100 boxes each of rice, flour, various instant noodles, loasafen, snail rice noodles, dried food, canned food, ready-to-eat food, dried fruits, nuts, bottled water, etc., just in case. The delivery address I provided was my aunt's house. My aunt still lived in the village of our hometown. She got divorced the year before last. She left the marriage with nothing. Since she had nowhere to live in the city, she had to return to the village. In recent years, due to the rapid development of the city, most people had moved to the city, and my aunt's family was the only one left in the village. After returning, she grew vegetables in the village to supply supermarkets in the city, so even when a series of delivery trucks arrived the next day, it didn't arouse anyone's suspicion. My aunt was shocked when she saw all these things. She gasped, "Fiona, you said you bought a lot of stuff, but you didn't say it was this much. This is enough to last 3 years, isn't it?" I let out a sigh of relief. The more the better. I was worried there wouldn't be enough food. I arrived at my aunt's house in the morning. After arriving, I told my aunt about the upcoming end times and that I had been reborn. I knew it sounded incredible, but I never expected that my aunt would believe me. She said, "Recently, something has been off in the fields and the pond. Aren't animals the most sensitive to natural disasters? But Fiona, why are you back alone? Where are your parents and your sister?" I was silent for a moment, then told my aunt the truth. My aunt had a tough time after the divorce. My parents were snobbish, and the two sisters hardly ever contacted each other. She only occasionally kept in touch with me. After hearing what happened, she trembled with anger. "Are your parents crazy? How could they ask you to give your score to Flora? What right do they have? They can't treat you so badly just because you're not their biological child." I was stunned. "What?" Then my aunt told me that I wasn't my parents' biological daughter. I was actually my uncle's daughter. My father died trying to save his sister, my mother. That's why my grandparents asked my parents to raise me. My mother was the eldest in the family and had been selfish since childhood. Even when my aunt divorced and moved back to the countryside, my mother still fought with her over the house here, even though she hadn't lived here for years. My aunt knew my mother's true nature and didn't want to argue with her. She paid my mother to get the house in the village. She cried, "I've had a hard time, and I thought since they were doing well, they would take good care of you. I never thought they would treat you so badly." I just smiled and said, "It doesn't matter, I didn't care anyway, and the end times are coming. Let's not think about it too much. The most important thing is to survive." My aunt nodded and followed my instructions, helping me move the supplies. My aunt had a small truck, and both of us could drive. The air raid shelter was large enough for the truck to drive in, so we could move the supplies quickly. Soon, we moved all the supplies to the air raid shelter at the back of the mountain. After that, I asked my aunt to hire someone to custom make several Class A armored doors overnight and install them in front of the air raid shelter. There were already 2 iron doors on both sides. My grandfather told me about this air raid shelter. He said it was left over from the war. The safety of this place was reliable, but I still wanted to add an extra door. After everything was done, my aunt and I started cleaning the air raid shelter. The air raid shelter was very large, with several doors. My aunt and I decided to live in the innermost part, but in that case, we needed to prepare a ventilation system and other facilities. There was already an electrical circuit here, and we just needed to check it. There were less than 5 days left from my rebirth to the arrival of the end times. I didn't have much time and had to ensure everything was safe as soon as possible. I was in charge of checking the safety issues, while my aunt was responsible for preparing daily necessities. She bought things like refrigerators, air conditioners, meat, cold-proof and warm keeping supplies, tents, personal hygiene products. She even bought some books, playing cards, music players, e-book readers. For safety reasons, I also bought knives, axes, flashlights, lighters, as well as firearms, bows and arrows, crossbows, and other self-defense equipment. This included first aid kits and medicines. We also got gas masks, protective clothing, gloves, goggles, etc. Considering that the power supply might be cut off, I bought gasoline, diesel, kerosene, candles, etc. for use when there was no electricity. This also included solar igniters, matchsticks that could be used thousands of times, and magnesium flintstones to ensure we could start a fire in various ways. Because fire was crucial, we also purchased various water purification devices, air purifiers, ventilation equipment, and a series of other essential survival items. Since we might be here for several years, my aunt also prepared seeds and gardening tools so that we could grow our own food. She had learned how to grow vegetables during her years living in the countryside after the divorce. On the last day, my aunt went to the city to pick up my cousin, who was attending tutoring classes. I checked to see if there were any other equipment we hadn't prepared. Finally, I realized we hadn't prepared any communication tools, so I went to buy walkie-talkies, radio sets, hand crank generators, spare mobile phones, power banks, etc. I also installed various hidden cameras in all corners outside the air raid shelter to keep an eye on the outside situation in a timely manner. On the way back, I also bought some fitness equipment and brought them all back. Georgia was stunned when she saw the supplies in the air raid shelter. Wait, cousin, Mom, did you prepare all these things because the end of the world is coming? I nodded and told her, that's right. My aunt had been worried that she wouldn't be able to accept the news. But to our surprise, Georgia got extremely excited. Really, is the end of the world really coming? I saw some videos about it on short video platforms before. I thought they were just scams. 6. Hearing Georgia's words, I immediately asked her to open the short video platform. That's when I realized that many people had already noticed something was wrong, but most of them didn't take it seriously. It didn't matter. Everyone has their own life. All we could do was respect their choices. On the day the apocalypse arrived, my aunt and I closed the iron doors layer by layer, sealing ourselves inside the air raid shelter. We were completely cut off from the outside world. At first, my aunt and cousin didn't believe it and kept checking the news and messages on their phones. It wasn't until they saw videos of people suddenly attacking others that they finally looked serious. I took out my phone and opened the surveillance video of my home. I had installed surveillance cameras at home, and I had the app on my phone. It was a good way to keep an eye on what was happening there. The video showed that my home was filled with guests. My parents had told all our relatives and friends that my sister had ranked among the top 50 in the province. Everyone had come to our house to offer their congratulations. Some even asked my mother for advice on how to raise a successful daughter. My sister Flora had dressed up like me, cutting her hair short, wearing my t-shirts and jeans, and even putting on a pair of black glasses. However, her eyes were red and swollen, and her nose was bandaged. Had she gotten double eyelid surgery and a nose job? Well, with these surgeries, along with the new hairstyle and clothes, since we already lived somewhat alike, it would be almost impossible for outsiders to tell us apart. One of the relatives noticed and asked, "Did Fiona get double eyelid surgery and a nose job?" My mother replied with a smile, "Yes. She's always wanted these surgeries. Since she did well in the college entrance examination, we decided to give her this as a reward. I performed the surgeries myself," the relative said. "Yeah, double eyelid surgery and nose jobs aren't really considered plastic surgery anymore, and Fiona will look even prettier after these procedures." My mother nodded and chimed in, laughing and talking about how ugly I used to be. The whole family seemed happy and carefree. I closed the video. Enjoy it while you can, I thought. I wonder if they'll still be able to laugh tomorrow. 7. It was the first day of our isolation. My aunt made hot pot, and the three of us happily ate while watching TV. On the first day of the apocalypse, the water and electricity were still on, so we could get news from the outside world. The news channels were advising people to stay at home, stock up on supplies, and avoid going out. Some media also reported stampedes and violent fights in supermarkets. Soon, More videos emerged. We watched in shock as people fought over a single pack of instant noodles. My aunt, Georgia, and I were stunned. Who would have thought that when it came to survival, human nature could become so twisted? And this was just the beginning. We lost our appetite, but we didn't dare to waste food. The vegetables were freshly picked from my aunt's garden. In the future, we might have to rely on compressed vegetables, so we made sure to eat everything. After the meal, we each picked up our phones and scrolled through the short video platforms. As expected, they were filled with similar videos, and many showed people biting each other. Those who were bitten quickly turned into zombies and then attacked others, gradually. People realized that the zombies were real and that the apocalypse had truly arrived. Everyone started to stay indoors, but staying indoors was only a temporary solution. Many people didn't have the habit of stockpiling supplies, so they soon became desperate and started trying to find food. A week later, people in the residential community group of my family's city apartment started discussing exchanging supplies. Some were even willing to trade luxury items like gold and Hermes bags for food. But few people responded. I was also in the group. As I read the messages, I checked the surveillance video again. The once lively home now looked quiet and filled with anxiety. Flora's stitches were due to be removed, but with the current situation, there was no way she could go to the hospital. Fortunately, my mother was a doctor and could do it at home. However, when she went to get the first aid kit, she couldn't find it anywhere. Furious, she asked my father and sister, and then she called me. As soon as I answered the phone, she snapped, "Where's the first aid kit?" Looking at the first aid kit at my feet, which I was using as a footrest, I said, "I took it to the countryside. When I left home, I had taken the first aid kit with me. In the previous life, after Flora's plastic surgery, my mother had used this very first aid kit to take care of her. This time, I wanted to see if my mother, as a plastic surgeon, could deal with the after effects of Flora's surgery without it." My mother started cursing. "You little bitch, who gave you the right to take things from home? Find a way to bring it back right now," I said, "but there are zombies everywhere. How can I get there?" My mother took a deep breath. "Be careful, figure out a way to bring it here. We really need medical supplies." I casually replied, "Okay, I'll see what I can do." After hanging up, I watched as my mother, father, and Flora cursed at me on the surveillance video. Finally, my mother comforted Flora. "Don't worry," she said, "she'll bring it back." 9. But they waited and waited, and I never showed up. When they tried to call me again, they couldn't get through. My mother finally realized that I wasn't going to bring the first aid kit back. She flew into a rage at home and had no choice but to remove Flora's stitches herself, without proper equipment or disinfection, and with the air possibly filled with toxic gas. Soon after she started, Flora's eyes and nose began to itch. She couldn't help but scratch them. Before long, they became inflamed. Without antibiotics, Flora was in excruciating pain. She wailed at home, "Mom, what should I do? My eyes and nose are so itchy and painful. What can I do?" My mother hurriedly tried to soothe her. "Baby, don't cry. You can't cry. If your tears get on the wounds, it will be even harder for them to heal. Hold it in, okay? We don't have antibiotics, so you have to bear with it." Flora stopped crying out of fear. But she was clearly on the verge of a breakdown. "Why did you let me get plastic surgery? Why did you agree to it?" My mother was at a loss. If Flora was going to pretend to be me, she had to look more like me. Plastic surgery was the only way. Seeing her daughter in so much pain, she felt distressed and said, "It's my fault, honey. I'll figure something out. I'll see if anyone in the community group has antibiotics and try to get some for you." There were indeed people in the group who had antibiotics, but with everyone in short supply, no one was willing to share. Moreover, with so many zombies in the neighborhood, no one dared to go outside for fear of getting infected. Besides, they were facing an even bigger problem, lack of food. My parents didn't have the habit of stockpiling supplies. 10. In just 1 week, they had eaten everything in the house. Now they had nothing left. So they weren't only dealing with the aftereffects of Flora's surgery but also with hunger. Hunger was unbearable. After 2 days, my parents couldn't take it anymore and wanted to go out to find food, but looking at the terrifying zombies outside, they didn't dare to leave the house, so they reluctantly asked in the community group if anyone had extra food they could trade, but no one responded. During the zombie apocalypse, supplies were a matter of life and death. Who would give them away? Meanwhile, Flora kept crying about her eyes and nose, blaming her parents for not stopping her from getting plastic surgery and making her life miserable. She even threw tantrums at home. My father, who had a short temper to begin with, lost his patience and slapped her. Under the stress of the apocalypse, his temper was even worse. The slap made Flora's eyes start bleeding again, and her nose was left crooked. She let out a painful scream. My father roared, "Shut up, we can't even get enough to eat." And you're still crying about your stupid face, stop bothering me, or I'll throw you out. Flora was too scared to cry anymore. Feeling hungry and terrified, she held back her tears. Watching this scene, I felt a sense of satisfaction. I was so pleased that it felt like even my blocked mammary glands had cleared up, so I recorded a video of my aunt, Georgia, and me enjoying hot pot and sent it to the family group. Then I lay back on the sofa and continued watching the surveillance video. 11. As expected, when my parents and sister saw the hot pot, they started salivating and immediately called me, begging me to send them food. Unfortunately, none of them could get through. Finally, my parents and Flora sent long voice messages, each 60 seconds long. In the group, I looked at the three of them going crazy in the video but didn't even bother to listen to the messages. I knew they were just cursing me. Suddenly, a video call popped up from someone I didn't know on WeChat. I was taken aback. Who could it be? Accidentally, I answered the call and was shocked to find that it was Flora. Damn, she had a hidden account on my WeChat. In the video, Flora looked deranged. Fiona, you bitch, why isn't your phone working? Do you have food? Hurry up and send some to me and Mom and Dad. Bring it here right now. My parents, who looked pale from hunger, ordered, yes, send food immediately. If you do, we'll forgive you for not answering your phone. I couldn't help but laugh, this time. I didn't give them any false hope. Instead, I said, you're in the big city, and I'm in the countryside, with zombies everywhere. How can I send you anything? Besides, even if I could, why would I? My dear aunt and uncle, my last words made my mother's eyes widen. You know. Then, as if realizing something, she started cursing. Did that bitch of an aunt tell you, that good for nothing, she can't live a decent life herself and now she's trying to turn you against us? How could you believe her, you ungrateful little wretch? Even if we're not your biological parents, we raised you for all these years. Hurry up and send us food. 12. I sneered. You owe it to my father, your own brother. You promised my grandparents that you'd take care of me. But look how you've treated me all these years. Now you even stole my college entrance exam score for your daughter, and you still have the nerve to ask me for food. Let me tell you, I'd rather feed my food to a dog than give it to you. Give up on that idea. After that, I hung up the phone, not wanting to waste another word on them. Then I blocked and deleted the account. I watched as my parents and Flora cursed and threw things in anger after I ended the call. They looked completely desperate. Just then, we all received a strange text message on our phones. It was from an organization called CB. The message said that the Earth was at a critical moment of survival. They were offering shelter to high-tech talents and students with college entrance examination scores above 700. Those who were interested were asked to reply with their information and address, and they would send helicopters for rescue. Each person could bring 2 family members. Shortly after, this message was debunked by new messages, warning people not to believe the scam, saying that there was no such organization and that the government treated everyone equally. But my parents clung to this like a lifeline. They immediately sent Flora's information and our home address. Soon, a helicopter came and rescued them. Watching this on the video, I felt calm and indifferent. I knew the zombie virus would end in about 2 years because in my previous life, after I died, my soul lingered in the world and witnessed everything until the Earth was renewed. Only then did I finally leave. 13. I also knew that the zombies were the result of a virus developed by the CB organization. The virus leaked, causing this human tragedy. In the end, they got what was coming to them and died at the hands of the zombies they created. 1 month after the zombies appeared, the whole world was in chaos. Zombies were everywhere. People were too afraid to go outside. There were hardly any survivors left in the cities. Occasionally, helicopters would fly by, dropping supplies, and sometimes, people would sneak out to grab the supplies when the zombies weren't looking and then hide again. Even in the countryside, this happened. It was just that there were fewer people and fewer zombies here. During this period, my aunt, Georgia, and I lived a very regular life in the air raid shelter. We went to bed early and got up early, leading a healthy lifestyle. In the morning, we watched dramas, scrolled through short videos, and read novels. In the afternoon, we worked out, and in the evening, we caught up on the latest news. My aunt was always thinking of ways to cook delicious meals for Georgia and me. We were worried about gaining weight, but fortunately, the air raid shelter was spacious enough, and I had also prepared fitness equipment, so we followed online fitness courses to stay in shape. When we had nothing else to do, we would keep an eye on the outside surveillance cameras. One day, just after Georgia and I finished our workout, my aunt let out a scream and called us over. When we got closer, we saw a group of men on the surveillance screen. We recognized the man leading the group. He was the one who installed the iron doors for us. He said to the people around him, "I saw when I installed the doors for those 2 women. They've stockpiled a lot of supplies inside. She must have known something and stocked up in advance. Once we break into this air raid shelter, both the women and the supplies inside will be ours. 14. My eyes turned cold. What they didn't know is that I had also installed high-voltage electric wires in front of the entire air raid shelter. I had been reluctant to use them before, but this was exactly the moment for them. In critical times, they could save our lives. So, as soon as they climbed up, I turned on the electricity, instantly. They let out screams, they twisted and writhed like zombies. Although there were few zombies in our village, it didn't mean there were none at all, and those zombies that attacked on sight mainly relied on their sense of hearing. So, the screams attracted all the nearby zombies. Soon, those men fled in all directions in a panic. Those who didn't manage to escape quickly turned into zombies. My aunt was terrified and trembling. Isn't this too cruel? This time, before I could say anything, Georgia retorted, Mom, don't be so naive at a time like this. Haven't you heard the saying, in the apocalypse, kill the naive first? My aunt gave Georgia a glare, and I also patted her, but I knew she was right. In the critical moment of life and death during the apocalypse, naivety could be fatal. Thankfully, my aunt understood. She just let out a sigh and didn't say anything more. During this time, both my aunt and Georgia received calls from Georgia's father. He asked where they were, saying he missed them. He also said he was on the verge of death. He wanted to be with them. He said he wanted to see them one last time before he died, but neither my aunt nor Georgia replied. There was no need to stay in touch with someone they were divorced from. Georgia's father probably realized that neither she nor my aunt was paying attention to him. Then he sent text messages, cursing viciously and using extremely offensive language. Georgia blocked him without hesitation and even blocked his number on her mother's phone. Only then did they finally have some peace. 15. The next time I heard news about Flora was 3 months later. Her eyes and nose had fully recovered. She appeared in a video, praising the benefits of the CB organization, saying that our parents were also well taken care of there and inviting top talents from around the world to join the CB organization. Looking at her high-spirited appearance and thinking about the information I knew, I edited a message and sent it out, hoping it might be of some help to the country. I'm just a weak woman and can't do much, but no matter what, I want to protect this earth. I want to do my part, no matter how small. After sending the message, I was sitting in front of the surveillance screen, playing with my phone. Suddenly, I saw a helicopter hovering outside. I sat up straight in a panic, then my phone rang. I was startled. It had been 3 months since the zombie outbreak. In these 3 months, the number of calls I received had gone from many at the beginning to almost none in the past month. This sudden call made me feel nervous. However, the person on the other end seemed very patient. After it rang for the 3rd time, I answered. A man's voice came through. Hello, I'm the person on the helicopter outside your location. Let me introduce myself. I am. The man introduced himself. His name was Declan. He said he was from the government. After speaking, he even waved at my surveillance camera. Obviously, he had located my surveillance equipment. 16. I looked at the man in military uniform outside, feeling both nervous and apprehensive. When I heard he was from the government, I felt a little more at ease and finally managed to speak. Hello. The man in the surveillance camera smiled at me. You're just a young girl. He then explained why he was here and his current responsibilities. From his introduction, I learned that he was in charge of the military's response to the zombie virus. They were collecting information worldwide. When they received my message, they were already investigating the CB organization and had been suspicious of it. My message had been of great help to them, so they immediately located the source of my message and sent him to pick me up. He said, Ma'am, if you know anything, we need your help. The Earth needs your help. Don't worry, we're not the bad guys. I think the reason you reminded us and told us about the culprits behind this is that you don't want to see our homeland devastated. Looking into his sincere eyes, I nodded and agreed. Okay, I'll help you. I led my aunt and Georgia out of the air raid shelter. After all, staying there forever wasn't a solution, and having died once, I knew that sooner or later, the government would find a way to deal with the virus, so I decided to come out. I also told him about the supplies I had stockpiled. When he saw them, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. There was enough food to last 5 years, it seemed. That's right, I had spent all the money I got from my mother, and even the money my grandmother left me, all on stockpiling supplies. Survival was the most important thing. 17. Declan told us that they didn't lack supplies, so there was no need to take everything away. Their helicopter couldn't carry that much anyway. After thinking it over, I asked him to organize the relocation of the nearby surviving villagers to the air raid shelter. I also appointed leaders for them. As long as they stayed inside, they could survive for a year or two. I knew that human nature could be dark. So I told them that Declan would come to inspect every month. If there were any abnormal deaths or incidents, they would all be kicked out, and no one would care about their lives anymore. Only then did I leave with Declan. On the helicopter, Declan looked at me and said, "I didn't expect a young girl to be so good at organizing things and understand the dark side of human nature during the apocalypse." I shrugged. Having lived through it once, I knew that even some family members couldn't be trusted in critical moments. When we arrived at the destination, I found it was a much larger and safer shelter base. There were many people being rescued here, including people from various countries and military regions, and they were all normal humans, showing no signs of the virus. Declan arranged for my aunt in Georgia, and then I followed him to the research laboratory. I didn't hide the fact that I had been reborn. I told them everything that happened before my rebirth, although after I died in my previous life, my soul floated in the air and I clearly saw how they developed the antidote. I didn't know exactly what it was made of, but the scientists understood as soon as I explained. 18. The idea of being reborn might seem absurd and ridiculous, but now that the world was in chaos, they would probably believe in time travel. Let alone rebirth. Declan was confused. What did the CB organization want those high-tech talents for? Remembering what I saw when my soul floated in the air in my previous life, I said, they have a virus. After high-tech talents are infected, they can still maintain their consciousness. There's no obvious sign, and they seem no different from normal humans. That's what makes it even more terrifying. That was why it took so long to deal with the situation in my previous life. As soon as Declan and the others heard this, their expressions darkened. They immediately decided to go to the CB organization and arrest everyone involved. Later, when Declan told me about it, he said that when they got there, some people had already been tricked into taking the first batch of the virus. They still looked human, just as I described, but in fact, they were dangerous beings with human-like appearances, so they were all shot down before they could be released. I curiously asked about the news of my parents and Flora. Before bringing me back, Declan had naturally investigated me thoroughly. He knew that my parents and Flora had been taken away by those people. He told me that my parents and Flora had also been deceived and infected with the first batch of the virus. When they arrived, my parents and Flora were in the front line, and naturally, they died the fastest. At the end, Declan seemed a bit worried. He looked at me and said, "There's still no antidote for their virus. They're just zombies in human form now." When the terrifying virus hit, the entire city, even the whole earth, seemed to turn into a purgatory. "So, please accept my condolences." I smiled. "Condolences for what? They're not my real parents. I just wanted to know their fate. Good riddance. I would never have let them live to see peace restored." 19. Then Declan remembered my true background. He breathed a sigh of relief. After all, if it weren't for my reminder, they might not have solved these problems so quickly. With my guidance and help, the scientific experts here developed an antidote in just 1 month. They tested it on people who had been bitten by zombies. Finally, they found that if a person bitten by a zombie received the antidote within 24 hours, they would recover. That meant the antidote they developed worked. But if more than 24 hours passed, it would be ineffective. There was another type of antidote. After a normal person took it, they wouldn't turn into a zombie even if bitten by a zombie. When the antidote was developed, Declan was the first to volunteer as a test subject. After getting the injection, he found a zombie to bite him. After observing him for 24 hours, 3 days, and 7 days, they found that he showed no reaction, so they immediately mass-produced the antidote and distributed it. In just half a year, almost all the zombies in China disappeared. The whole country began to recover from its lifeless state and regain its vitality. People started to get back on their feet. Social order was gradually restored. The survivors began to step out of their homes, breathe in the fresh air, hug their fellow survivors, and be grateful for the world they were still living in. At the same time, they paid tribute to the relatives and friends who died during the zombie apocalypse, as well as the unknown heroes, whose names may or may not be known, who sacrificed their lives to fight against the terrifying zombies. Perhaps the world will go through some disasters, but I believe that there will always be people who will risk their lives to protect this world, like Declan, and every unknown person who shoulders the heavy responsibility. As the city and the country gradually regained their vitality, in September of the following year, I successfully entered the National University of Defense Technology.